Phoebe Heyerdahl. This 9-year-old student at PS 118 is without a doubt one of the deepest characters in Hey Arnold. At first glance, she's quickly dismissed as the smart kid who constantly gets railroaded and treated like a servant by her best friend Helga. Behind that snap judgment, though, there genuinely is a lot more going on. And it truly is a lot darker than you ever remembered it being. Phoebe is known for a lot of things. For being more on the quiet side, for being the smartest kid in class, and for honestly being a bit of a pushover. I mean, she's the kind of girl who gets yelled at by Helga just because, and her response is apologizing to Helga, essentially asking for forgiveness over something that she didn't even do. With that in mind, she's often seen as really soft and fragile, as comes with the territory of also being one of the kindest kids in class. Phoebe is generally nice to everybody, even people who aren't kind to her and use her as a doormat more or less. It's just kind of in her nature. Since the beginning of this show, her character design has remained pretty simple and consistent. She has black hair pulled up into a bun, a pair of blue glasses, an oversized blue sweater, and matching blue shoes. Among her peers, she has a positive reputation, all things considered. She's capable of sympathy, usually being quick to show care and emotion when somebody is going through hard times, whereas others may not be as understanding, especially her best friend Helga. In all reality, the pairing of Helga and Phoebe as best friends is one that genuinely seems odd when you think about it. The two are complete opposites in demeanor and overall intention. With that being said, the roots of their friendship really do go deep, spanning all the way back to kindergarten. However, the more you zoom in on the bigger picture, the more we find ourselves questioning if this is a friendship that Phoebe wants to be a part of, or if she just puts up with practically being forced into a servant-like role for the girl who's supposed to be her best friend. Outside of Helga, there's one other person who usually comes to mind as it pertains to Phoebe, and that would be none other than Gerald. I touched briefly on their relationship in the Dark Side of Hey Arnold video about Gerald, which I will have linked in a playlist down in the description box below, but today we're gonna dive into the background of their relationship and how it would truly blossom in the background of this show over time. On that note, grab a snack and get comfy, my friend, because today we're diving deep into the mind, psyche, and overall difficult story of Phoebe Heyerdahl to really show just how morbid that her journey throughout this entire show was. This is the dark side of Hey Arnold. To start our journey off, we're going to dive into an aspect of Phoebe's character that is one of the most prominent that literally everybody sees. However, a lot of people never really connect the dots with where it comes from and just how deeply it affects her on a psychological level. And that aspect would be her need to be perfect. And of course, the lengths that she'll go in order to maintain that perfect facade if she needs to. From the very beginning of this show, Phoebe's intelligence has always been one of her biggest defining character traits. Over time, we would see her getting awards for perfect attendance and recognition for other education-related achievements, but in the long run, we never really got a direct episode that gave us the background on why Phoebe strives for perfection in the same way that we did for Helga's situation in the episode Helga on the Couch. However, it's rather subtly hinted at throughout the series and never really confirmed, leaving the audience attempting to connect dots on our own. The first dot would come in the form of the Season 2 episode, Phoebe cheats.
This report on President Lincoln deserves a very special place on the bulletin board.
Let me guess. It's another monument of perfection by Phoebe Heyerdahl.
The author is our very own Sheena. Sheena, stand up and take a bow.
Can it be you're actually slipping, Phoebe?
Phoebe brushes Helga off, saying that she's happy that Sheena is getting recognition. However, when Mr. Simmons announces the class citizens of the month, Gerald, Nadine, and Harold, Phoebe is clearly bothered, shocked that she didn't get picked again. From there, though, Mr. Simmons announces their next project, a poetry contest, the winner of which will receive this trophy of famed poet Emily Dickinson.
I must win this contest, Helga.
You better spill your guts on the page if you want Simmons to give you the prize.
The sun sets in the west. No, that won't do. The Earth? Well, logically, the Earth spins out in space. Oh, of course. I'll develop this theme in depth.
As Phoebe continues writing her poem from a very calculated scientific angle, we cut over to Helga's room where she's struggling to come up with anything, convinced that she's lost her poetic creativity. Like clockwork, however, she stumbles upon a picture of Arnold and, naturally, a poem just kind of starts falling out of her mouth.
Cowlicks, like fields of yellow corn. All the days of my week, I write the name I dare not speak. The boy with the cornflower hair, my beloved, in my despair. That's a keeper.
Back in Phoebe's world, things aren't progressing very well at all. Her poem feels a little too robotic and formulaic. She decides to open up a poetry book, considering using one of the poems for kind of a guide to give her a bit of inspiration. However, she's convinced that she just doesn't have what it takes to write like a professional poet. At that, she starts to look back and forth at the door and her paper, considering her options.
But I have to win. I have to be the best. I hear your name like a bell.
Next thing you know, we cut to Mr. Simmons' class where he's just gushing over Phoebe's poem as he announces her to be the winner in front of the entire class, passing her the trophy. She takes it, feeling just a bit of shame by the undeserved praise, which is made even worse by Mr. Simmons announcing Helga's anonymous poem as the second place winner, which of course came from her heart instead of being plagiarized from a book. Later that night, at Phoebe's house, we see her sitting down with her parents.
Now a toast. この見事な若詩人. Phoebe, your mother and I are both so proud of your accomplishment. Kanpai.
Bottoms up!
Mother, Father, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to go to bed now. I'm tired from all the excitement.
Phoebe, dearest, your trophy. It deserves a place of honor in your room.
Thank you, Father. Good night.
Phoebe sits down, talking to the Emily Dickinson trophy and trying to rationalize her cheating, saying that it was only one time and that she knows more about poetry than anyone else in class. However, despite her stretched justifications, she loses the moral battle with the stare of the statue, putting it into her desk drawer and laying down for bed. As she tosses and turns throughout the night, though, her mom sneaks into her room, grabbing her trophy and putting it on her table, as if it were looking down upon her.
You're a stupid trophy, really. I don't know why I even wanted you in the first place. That poem was rotting away. I rescued it.
At school the next day, Phoebe has a sit-down talk with Mr. Simmons where she tries to explain her situation. Before she can tell the truth, though, Principal Warts walks in looking for help for the open house tomorrow. Mr. Simmons suggests having Phoebe do some poetry for everyone, and though she clearly doesn't want to, Principal Warts refuses to give her an option, insisting that they showcase her talent for poetry in front of everybody. Next thing you know, we cut to later that evening where Phoebe is fencing with her dad.
Phoebe, you're moving like an angry wind tonight. Touché!
No, I contest that.
I'm certain I made contact.
And I am certain you did not.
Ah, then I must be mistaken. I know full well how honest you are, little treasure. I do not doubt you for a moment.
Why is everyone picking on me?
Her dad stands there just confused after she storms off, and as the night continues, Phoebe goes to sleep, yet again tossing and turning restlessly while the weather rages outside. Eventually, though, as lightning strikes and thunder roars, Phoebe shoots awake, seeing her trophy staring at her in the dead of night.
What do you want from me?
Well, if it isn't Little Miss Smarty Pants.
You're an inanimate object. You can't talk.
And you can't write poetry.
I can't hear you.
Cheater, cheater. Cheater.
The next morning, we cut over to the park where Phoebe is digging in the sandbox, burying the trophy once and for all. She takes one final look at it, and as she hears it mocking her, laughing and calling her naive, she buries it and walks away without any further thought. Just then, though, some kid jumps into the sandbox and the trophy goes flying, ending up in front of Arnold of all people. Naturally, he recognizes the trophy and decides to bring it to Phoebe, imagining that she's probably looking everywhere for it. At that, we cut to later on where Phoebe is walking home, finishing a popsicle that she bought from the Jolly Ollie man. When she gets into her room, though, she's shocked to see the trophy just standing there, menacingly.
So you thought you could get rid of me just like that? You didn't do the hard work you're capable of. You stole a poem and called yourself a poet. You should have searched deep inside yourself like all real poets do.
Please go away. I know I didn't earn you. And now it makes me sick when I look at you. I hate you, you scary little statue.
Phoebe's mom knocks at the door, asking what's going on, and Phoebe lies to her, saying that it's nothing. At that, she comes to the shocking realization of just how far she's come, doing things that are so unlike her. At first, she blames the trophy for making her do this stuff, but ultimately she comes to realize that this all was a result of her own poor decision-making. Next thing you know, she's pulling the base out of her desk and screwing it back onto the trophy.
Where are you taking me?
Be quiet.
Will I need a sweater?
Now, listen, I'm about to do something a little bit different, but it would mean the absolute world to me if you would listen to what I have to say with an open mind. Before we get to the next part, a quick word from a guy on a soapbox about directly supporting your favorite real human content creators that actually make their videos with heart and soul.
Hey friends, I'm a guy with the soapbox from a company who is not a sponsor that I no longer buy from because their quality went pretty far downhill in my opinion. However, I brought this old soapbox out of storage and dusted it off so that I could stand shamelessly upon it here today and talk to you guys about something that is offensively important. I'm sure a lot of you have seen or at least scrolled past some videos recently about the rise of generative AI and how it's destroying people's careers and pushing people to lengths of which you cannot return. To be honest, yeah, it's happening right before your very eyes. Artists who work on movies and TV, graphic design, physical art, and, of course, YouTubers. A lot of really big content creators have made videos completely dedicated to the topic of generative AI and how it has affected life in quite a few crazy ways. It's honestly a really weird landscape right now for content creators and artists in general, especially those that don't have millions or even hundreds of thousands of subscribers. To be honest, a lot of people who used to get by on their art and make a full-time living off of it are barely scraping by or not scraping by at all, heavily due to generative AI and likely the effects of AI on a lot of platforms' algorithms. It's no secret that AI in general has led to some severely negative effects in workforces everywhere. Now, I can't speak for everybody in every workforce in every industry. However, as somebody who understands YouTube relatively well as a platform, I'd love to tell you about how you can personally help your favorite YouTubers, especially the small ones, absolutely free. 2 words. Watch videos. Find one of your favorite YouTubers who you know without a shadow of a doubt is a real person, not using AI to generate the entire video for them. Pick one of their playlists, start at the top, and just let it play through video by video until the last one. The act of sticking around for another video after the one you're watching is finished makes YouTube happy and tends to push those videos. On top of that, if you get a skippable ad, let it play for at least maybe 30 seconds before skipping. That way that ad is guaranteed to pay out that YouTuber that you're watching. I will fully admit, ads suck. Nobody likes to watch them, but you know what's worse than watching an ad? A world where YouTube and other platforms are nothing but AI-generated content, because actual living, breathing YouTubers who pour their passion into their videos aren't worth even watching ads for. And honestly, that's just how you can help small YouTubers for free. Of course, if your family is already fed and you're not drowning financially, you could totally buy a super thanks, become a YouTube member, or subscribe to a service like Patreon. Heck, even if that person has Buy Me a Coffee, you can pay that service one time to donate to that creator directly, just once. The thing is, I know I speak for all of us when I say that making sure you and your family are taken care of is way more important than donating to anybody on the internet. Hence why I stress the free options so much. I mean, put small YouTubers on for chill background noise while you do chores or whatever it is that you might be doing. Put small YouTubers on for your houseplants during the day because they love being talked to. Put small YouTubers on for your pets to watch while you're off at work so that the house doesn't feel so empty to them. I guarantee that there are a ton of small content creators who could desperately use your help right about now. Plus, watching YouTube is enjoyable for most people, pets, and houseplants alike, so it's a no-brainer. This portion of the video is not sponsored by YouTube or anybody for that matter. Just for clarity, I'm not really just worried for my own future, but the future of many different creative human minds all over the internet. Thank you very much for coming to my TED Talk. If you made it this far, please drop a like and leave me a comment letting me know about your thoughts on generative AI. And with that being said, let's get back to the video.
So from there, we cut right to the school where Phoebe is standing with her parents, coming clean to Mr. Simmons about how she copied that poem directly from a book.
Why was the contest so important to you that you decided to cheat?
I'm used to being the best, sir. That's who I am.
Don't you think there's a lot more to Phoebe Heyerdahl than always being the best and winning awards?
I really don't know, sir.
Well, I'm sure of it. But needing to be the best at everything and how it makes you feel when you don't win, I want you to write a poem about that.
Mr. Simmons says that they still need a poem to read on stage, and as they look out into the crowd, they spy Helga, giving them an idea. At that, Phoebe takes to the stage, but instead of reading the poem that she stole, she ends up reading what she says was the best poem in class, written by Anonymous.
All the days of my week, I write the name I dare not speak. The boy with the cornflower hair, my beloved and my despair.
Poor Helga. She's been shot through the heart by a pretty poem.
Now, before we get into how much this episode really does say about Phoebe, there's one massive point I've been holding in that I just have to let out. Honestly, it really is so insane how much this show invokes those nostalgic 90s feelings. I mean, this episode aired in 1997. That awkward period between the end of the analog age for the most part and the start of the digital era fully taking things over. It, without a doubt, feels like a product of its time, especially in comparison to 2025. I mean, Mr. Simmons can't even check Phoebe's poem for plagiarism because the internet wasn't as readily available at this time, and even then, if it was available, checkers like that aren't anywhere near as smart as they would become in the years to follow. Back then, it was essentially a matter of the teacher having heard or being familiar with the source material in order to recognize that a work had been plagiarized. Even crazier than that, though, looking at it through the lens of 2025 to almost 2026, plagiarism by real people is practically the last worry on anyone's mind. Because instead, people just have ChatGPT doing the plagiarizing for them. It's honestly mind-blowing to think that literally, once upon a time, kids could easily get away with stuff like this. And don't get me wrong, a ton of people got caught for plagiarism back in the day, especially considering a tone and sentence flow that doesn't match any prior work is glaringly obvious, but still, this show in general, in so many unique ways, is a true statement of how much the world has changed since 1997, and specifically, how quickly things have changed. Like, 1997 and 2005 feel like universes apart when compared technologically, and that's not even an entire decade jump. And on that note, if in 2005 you had told me that in 20 years my dream job would practically be overtaken by computers that can make awful art in the blink of an eye, I would have thought you stepped right out of Star Trek or the Twilight Zone or something. It's a crazy rabbit hole, but this episode kind of rips open your mind to the reality that the last 30 years, our species has seen bigger technological advancements than it has over nearly the last 300 years. Moving along though, as it pertains to Phoebe, this episode is one that took her character that we've seen in the background, serving Helga quietly for more than an entire season now, and it opened the pages of her brain like a book for us to read plain as day. The opening of this episode is an interesting one to take in because from the start it serves to assure Phoebe's place to the viewer, even if they aren't familiar with her already. It does so in a pretty subtle way too. Helga begins by pointing out how perfect that Phoebe is, calling her previous work monuments of perfection. After that though, she questions Phoebe's ability to be happy for her peers' success, which Phoebe assures her of, all the while slowly cracking under the weight of how much it actually does bother her not being the best. This moment genuinely comes across as powerful in hindsight when we realize that it establishes not only Phoebe as perfect, but also struggling with not always being perfect while others have their time in the limelight. And at the same time, it also shows us how Helga has an ability to read Phoebe like the open book that she is, even when Phoebe herself isn't convinced of how she really feels. Sure, you could argue that Phoebe was trying to convince Helga that she doesn't mind her peers having their time to shine, but in all reality, looking back, this is clearly Phoebe trying to convince herself that she isn't bothered by it. Meanwhile, of course, Helga doesn't need convincing of anything because she already knows the truth. She knows good and well that this bothers Phoebe. That's an interesting point to keep in mind as it pertains to Helga because we're definitely going to circle back to her in a later part of this video. For now though, I also really want to take a moment to point out Phoebe's refusal to acknowledge her struggle at this moment. It's fascinating. especially when we consider the fact that later on, Phoebe not only acknowledges that she isn't naturally talented at poetry, but also blatantly recognizes that she knows what she's doing is wrong. The way she closes the blinds, the way she sees someone's shadow under the door and stops like a deer in headlights, it shows that she's fully aware of what she's doing, but her desperation to be the best trumps any minor bit of shame for her actions in this exact moment. Ultimately, though, we know that the shame exists. She wouldn't be doing these small things to cover her tracks out of desperation to not break her perfect facade if that thought wasn't already looming over her. Through all of this, however, the big thing to point out is that we also see a massive fear of being exposed. The fear of her true feelings or secrets coming to light, which is something that we're going to see a lot more of over the next few episodes. The biggest thing driving Phoebe throughout this one isn't necessarily a guilt about what she did. That was just a byproduct of a fear of being caught cheating and exposed as someone who isn't really perfect. The guilt came to the surface, no doubt, but the driving force behind nearly all of her actions here were rooted in covering her tracks. The real question here, though, is where does all of this come from? Her desperate need to be so perfect that she considers doing something morally corrupt in order to get there. And in all reality, that's a bit of a hard one to pin down directly, mainly due to mixed messages sent by the show. For a lot of people, our immediate thought would be pressure put on her by her parents. The fact that they hold her to such a high standard that they put an unending amount of pressure on her. The truth is, though, Phoebe's parents aren't seemingly like that. At least, not in this episode. We didn't really see any point where they put some extreme pressure on her, let alone an unreasonable level of pressure. In this episode, her dad is nothing but supportive, trusting of her, and giving her space when she clearly needed it, as did her mother. However, there were a few specific moments that did potentially hint at something deeper than just their personal family dynamic. Specifically, that moment where Phoebe's father proposes a toast to her success, speaking in both Japanese and English. And the moment where he goes on to tell Phoebe that her trophy deserves a place of honor in her bedroom. This moment really is interesting to dissect because Phoebe may be from Kentucky, like she pointed out to Principal Warts. However, that doesn't mean that her father, who is clearly at least part Japanese, considering he has the surname Heyerdahl, which is traditionally of Norwegian descent, didn't raise his daughter with morals which may reflect his own, likely instilled in him from how he was raised by his own parents. Morals that very well could have been derived from growing up in a traditional Japanese household for him. On that note, Japanese culture is known for a huge variety of traits, but on a social level, their culture prioritizes, among many other things, etiquette, respect, humility, social order, and of course, honor. Now, as it relates to Phoebe, the fact that her father used the term place of honor as it pertains to a spot in her room for the trophy really does speak volumes. Sure, when Principal Warts asked where she's from, she said Kentucky, because that's where she was born and where her family moved away from. Principal Warts, being the foot-in-his-mouth idiot that he is, doesn't ask about her family's history, culture, heritage. He simply asked where she's from, and she answered, just kind of making him look like an idiot in the process. However, just because she was born in Kentucky doesn't mean she wasn't raised by somebody who strongly embraces traditional Japanese values. The land that you are born on doesn't dictate how you raise your children. Obviously, I'm not trying to imply that she inherently prioritizes honor because of her genetic makeup, but rather that her parents likely raised her with a set of values that prioritize honor from a young age. I mean, based on our knowledge of Phoebe, our look at her lifestyle, and how she interacts with her parents, they likely embrace doing the right thing, being a good person, and being the best, most successful version of yourself. without completely sacrificing yourself in the name of complete and utter perfection. On that note, being perfect and having honor are two vastly different things. When it comes to Phoebe trying to be perfect, which she's usually able to rely on her natural talent, hard work, and smarts for, the moment that the perfection begins to crumble, she's left with a hard decision. The decision to forego a sense of honor in the name of a false victory, which is what ultimately would end up haunting her worse than the fear of not winning this poetry contest in the first place ever did. There's a very high likelihood that honesty, integrity, and of course, honor are some of the core principles that Phoebe was raised by and has always lived by. Going against that, in a way, feels like completely betraying everything that she's ever known and abandoning who she is as a person completely. It would be like Arnold seeing somebody in help and turning a blind eye. It just goes against pretty much everything he is as a person. With all that being said, though, as far as Phoebe's parents are concerned, I do feel the need to point out that there very well could be a level of pressure that we, the audience, don't see. I mean, like I said, in this episode, we don't see any crazy level of pressure, but we see them for, all of 90 seconds total? By all means, there could be a lot more going on for her at home than what was ever shown. One really big telling aspect that echoes that sentiment, aside from her feeling the need to be the best in general, is the part where Mr. Simmons asks why this contest was so important to her. She simply explains her need to be the best and to be perfect, saying that's just who she is. As her parents glance at one another, sharing a look that says 1,000 words. It reads of two parents who have always embraced their daughter and taught her to be a good person, but potentially may have taught her to reach for an unreasonable level achievement to the point where it's so deeply ingrained in her that she doesn't even know why she does it anymore. I think possibly, though, the darkest aspect of this episode has to be just how much this experience haunted Phoebe. She made that decision, and it just continued to torment her mentally over and over again, to the point where she was struggling to sleep and waking up next to that trophy constantly. She even started to hallucinate it talking to her. I mean, that right there is just next level messed up. I'd say for me, in a big way, this trophy really serves as a standing relic that symbolizes this episode. The way it has just such flat tones in its coloring and its face is just kind of straight plain and lifeless. That, combined with the voice that they gave it, just makes for such a peculiarly specific kind of nightmare fuel. The kind that spikes the viewer's anxiety and invokes the type of fear that Phoebe herself feels in that moment. Through the way she was raised and the other possible factors, though, lies one other big thing to consider. That would be the fact that 100% of what happened here was directly a result of Phoebe putting a massive amount of expectation on herself.
But I have to win. I have to be the best.
In this episode, nobody is telling her that she has to be perfect except for Phoebe herself. It's almost as if she knows what she's capable of and refuses to be sold short. However, she also refuses to take accountability for the moments where she genuinely does fall short in something that she attempts, such as writing poetry. In all reality, whether it's related to her parents and how she was raised or not, there is one massive thing that's true for sure. The core of all this stems from deep-rooted self-consciousness. From worrying that she isn't good enough and carrying a hyper sense of self-awareness. Ultimately, her fear of imperfection would really just lead to a sense of overwhelming shame in the moments where she isn't perfect, which of course are inevitable. And as it pertains to that point, there's one very specific episode that truly highlights it to a T. One that shows not only her continuing need to be perfect, but also shows how devastatingly terrified she is of having her perfect facade ripped away for everybody to see. And that would be none other than the Season 5 episode, Phoebe's Little Problem. As this episode starts out, we see Arnold on the bus headed for school. As he holds a red container full of cookies, he offers one to Rhonda. However, she scoffs and denies the offer, offended that there are prunes in the cookies because Arnold's grandma apparently puts them in everything that she bakes.
Willikers, Arnold. I reckon prune's just about the nastiest cookie flavor around.
Actually, prunes are enjoyed the world over by people of all ages, and despite their rather unpleasant appearance, they're really quite tasty. Not to mention an excellent source of iron and a wonderful implementer of dietary regulation.
Here, Phoebe, why don't you just take them?
Don't mind if I do. The iron will give me energy when I accept my award this afternoon. Mmm, delicious.
At school, Phoebe ends up finishing the entire container of cookies before tossing it into the trash, her stomach letting out a very loud grumble. Just like that, we cut to the auditorium, where the assembly is underway to congratulate Phoebe on receiving the Excellence in Attendance Award for 36 months in a row. Principal Warts passes the mic over to Phoebe for her acceptance speech, as nearly all the students in attendance roll their eyes, likely having heard this speech a few times already.
It isn't just my passion for knowledge and my superior dedication that keeps me dutifully coming back to PS 118 each and every day. It's also the kind, nurturing environment created by my wonderful friends and peers.
Phoebe! Phoebe just farted!
As the entire auditorium erupts with laughter at her expense, Phoebe drops her award and the microphone as she runs out of the school in tears. However, the one student who isn't laughing follows in hopes of consoling her. None other than Arnold. He tries to tell her that it's okay and that things like this happen all the time.
In fact, I bet there's not one single person we know that doesn't have an embarrassing fart story.
Well, have you ever done it in public, Arnold? You know, past gas?
Not exactly. I mean, not into a microphone.
Then how can you possibly understand the utter humiliation of what I've just experienced?
Look, Phoebe, I know things may seem really bad right now, but trust me, by tomorrow, everyone will have forgotten all about what just happened.
Really?
I'm positive.
Arnold walks Phoebe home, and the next day we see her going through school hoping for the best when, as luck would have it, Harold catches sight of her and starts making fun of her in front of everyone, leaving her humiliated and running away crying. Later on, at lunch, she even gets it from the lunch lady.
And a portion of Brussels sprouts, please.
Are you sure that's a good idea, Phoebe?
Pardon me?
You know, because of your little problem, Brussels sprouts are quite gassy.
The lunch lady's right. You don't want to be fluffering in front of everyone all over again.
Or dropping any more of those stink bombs.
From there, things just get worse for poor Phoebe. We see her sitting in class listening to Mr. Simmons' lecture, and of course he just has to be giving a lesson on human anatomy. He tries to call Rhonda up to come and point out the small intestine and the colon, and of course Rhonda has to take this as a moment to dunk on Phoebe right in front of everybody.
Gosh, Mr. Simmons, maybe you ought to ask Phoebe instead. You know, since she's the digestion expert.
Now, class, the expulsion of gas is just a perfectly natural part of our body's very special digestion cycle. It's nothing to poke fun at and nothing to be ashamed of. Now, Rhonda, please come up to the front of the room and point out the correct organs on the fart. Charles, I'm sorry.
At home that night, Phoebe talks to her parents about what happened, telling them that she's never going back to PS 118. They leave the choice completely up to her, suggesting that maybe she takes a week away from the school to make up her mind for sure. However, she assures them that she is confident in her decision, despite agreeing to the week-long trial run. All of a sudden, though, the doorbell rings, and Phoebe is surprised to see none other than Arnold on her doorstep.
What are you doing here?
I wanted to stop by and make sure everything was okay.
Why, I'm just fine. Ever since I decided that I'm never going back to PS118, I've been doing just great.
Never going back to PS118? Phoebe, don't you think you're overreacting?
No, Arnold. I think I'm being perfectly rational considering the circumstances.
Come on, Phoebe. You know you can't run away from this farting thing.
I'm sorry, Arnold, but I've made up my mind.
Phoebe says that as long as everybody is gonna keep making fun of her, she's never coming back, as she slams the door in Arnold's face, leaving him feeling frustrated. Just like that, though, we cut to school the next day where Arnold is telling the whole class about the talk that he just had with Phoebe, explaining how she's officially not going to be one of their classmates anymore simply because they just can't stop making fun of her all these days later.
Now, people, one of our own classmates is in trouble, and it's up to us to help her through her crisis. I think we should all go over to Phoebe's after school and tell her that she has nothing to be embarrassed about. And if she comes back to school, we'll all forget about her little incident and never talk about it again. What do you say? Okay, if we pull this off, then tomorrow's movie day.
Later on, we cut to Phoebe's house where everyone is gathered in the living room. Mr. Simmons reminds them that they're all here to make Phoebe feel better, and just like that, they send each of her peers in one by one to talk to her. They start with Rhonda because Mr. Simmons is kind of an idiot, and of course, it goes right about as well as you'd expect. She goes in there and reassures Phoebe that in no time, everybody will have moved on from this, and they'll start making fun of her behind her back instead of to her face, which, of course, just makes everything 10 times worse. After that, Stinky is sent in to try his hand at helping in the form of reading a poem that he wrote to express how he feels about her.
If our dear friend Phoebe went away, we wouldn't know just what to say. If I could wish upon a star, I'd wish you'd stay here where you are. If you go, then we'll be blue, all of us kids, and Mr. Simmons too. It seems a shame that we be parted just on account of you farted.
Mr. Simmons comes in and genuinely does a pretty good job of building her up and reminding her of how capable she is. However, when he accidentally slips up and says the word fart instead of start, all the work that he did goes right out the window as Phoebe is reminded of the thing that he promised they would all forget. From there, we see Helga come in and just put her foot right in her mouth, being an absolute jerk to her best friend.
Look, Phoebe, you've got to snap out of this. I mean, criminy, it's not like it's the first time you ever farted. Heck, when you sleep over, you do it all the time. You rip them all night long. They stink to high heaven. It's all I can do to keep from passing out.
Just get out.
Well, it's all up to you now, football head.
As Arnold walks in, he asks if she feels any better, but through tears, she says that she just feels worse about everything, and all this accomplished was confirming that people will never forget about what happened. He argues with her, though, saying that she's a lot more than just that one embarrassing moment, and that all she needs to do is make everybody remember how they thought of her before that moment happened.
I can't do that, Arnold. I can't face them.
If you can't face the class, how are you ever going to face yourself?
Students, may I have your attention, please?
Oh, I hope this doesn't take long. I gotta see a man about a dog.
Just then, Phoebe bursts through the door and marches onto the stage, taking the mic from her windbag principal and proceeding to put her peers right in their place. She tells them that because of what happened, they've just simply reduced her to the girl who farted, and it isn't fair because she's so much more than that.
If you ask me, I don't have anything to be ashamed of. I think you're the ones who should be ashamed.
Well, I, for one, applaud Miss Heyerdahl for having the courage to stand up for herself. And I think you should, too. What do you say, gang?
Phoebe's a farter! Phoebe's a farter! Uh-oh. Look! Harold wet his pants!
Harold starts crying for his mommy as he runs out of the auditorium in tears, and at that, Phoebe sits back with a smile, not participating in any of the laughter, which is where this episode comes to an end. So this episode is one that not only shines a huge light on Phoebe, but also the entirety of the students and faculty at PS 118 as well. I mean, we can't ignore the absolute obscene level of irony in Phoebe's speech, talking about how she comes to school due to the kind, nurturing environment created by her peers, as she's best friends with one of the meanest bullies in her grade, Helga. As Sid and Stinky have called Harold and Patty both fat and made fun of them for various reasons. As Patty threatens to beat up Helga, as Harold threatens to beat up Arnold, as a little boy literally runs around hopelessly addicted to chocolate and willing to do unspeakable things for it, as one of their classmates holds up in the principal's office firing dodgeballs at everyone while he goes postal, and of course, most obvious of all, moments before the entire school would rip her perfect mask to shreds over an embarrassing moment. Yeah, such a nurturing environment that they're fostering there. As much as I appreciate Phoebe's positive outlook on life, it comes across as her not seeing this school for what it really is because she's never been the target. She's never been relentlessly bullied like many other kids there have. She sees PS 118 as this safe haven of solid education, when, in all reality, it was simply just a matter of time before the sights were set on her. When that time did come, though, God, it was truly brutal. It would see one of her worst fears coming true. An aspect of herself that she hides in secrecy being put on display publicly for everybody to mock. It not only ties directly into the point about her self-consciousness and fear of not being good enough, but it's also a literal attack on her already fragile self-image. It's sad, because for Phoebe, things just went really far here. I mean, we've seen other kids in the show get bullied, but Phoebe had even the faculty getting in on it for days on end. Whether it was done intentionally or not, it's completely not okay. Of course, Mr. Simmons slipping up and saying fart instead of chart in class right as he just finished defending Phoebe is one thing. That's completely different, and in that specific moment, it felt very unintentional. It was more a case of unfortunate timing for a verbal slip-up. But the second time, you're borderline Austin Powers making fun of that guy with the mole while trying to hold it back. Meanwhile, that lunch lady, on the other hand, completely uncalled for. Everything about this lady, to be honest, is absolutely suspicious. Like, what kind of person even does this? I don't even think Phoebe knows this lady's name. I mean, we the viewers don't even know this lady's name. She's just like one of the lunch ladies. Yet, this woman is addressing her by name, questioning her lunch decisions, and pointing out possible digestion, quote, problems, as she put it. In the moment, the vibe kind of felt like a stranger walking up to you and talking to you as if they were literally your mother. Especially because she didn't really have a teasing or rude look on her face. It's like she's genuinely trying to make motherly suggestions to this little girl who she seems to know a little too well, considering that the little girl doesn't know the first thing about her other than that she serves lunch. Like, the fact that this lady can't even comprehend how this could be damaging is almost offensive. It's like a complete and utter lack of social awareness. How can you have clearly sat in that auditorium the day before and witnessed what happened to Phoebe, complete with her running out in tears, and not stop to think that saying something like this at lunch the next day might just make things worse? Either this lunch lady is doing it intentionally to mess with Phoebe in front of everyone, or she's just completely oblivious to the appropriate way to communicate with people. Circling back adjacent to a point that I made earlier, though, it's really interesting to take in the fact that this episode wasn't another case of Phoebe hiding her emotions or feelings like we saw in the beginning of the last episode. In this one, Phoebe's emotions are not only wide out in the open, but they're also a drop in the bucket of self-consciousness when compared to the embarrassing moment that she's being humiliated for. She doesn't really try to hide her shame, her tears, or, in general, the many ways that bullying was affecting her. Instead of hiding those feelings, she's just wishing that she could go back and hide the moment that her social life completely imploded. In the long run, however, I do appreciate that Phoebe actually did hold back just a bit of emotion in this one, at the very end specifically. The moment where Harold becomes the new target of the entire school's ridicule. Honestly, I'm sure that Phoebe found this moment hilarious and like an ultimate swing of karma. I mean, during the whole mic drop speech, she even admitted that if she was one of them, she would have probably found the fart situation funny too. But even then, it really does say a lot that instead of laughing and joining in on the mocking and high hopes of revenge, she just kind of sits back and smiles, knowing good and well that karma had done its job. At least for Harold. Everyone else just kind of got away with making fun of Phoebe. But Phoebe is one of those characters who absolutely recognizes from a mile away that laughing at Harold in this moment will just perpetuate the issue that she's been rallying against. Besides, Harold was the one who kept going past everyone else, so naturally he would be the one to take karma's inevitable punishment. He was pretty much the main instigator this entire time, so it only makes sense that he would end up facing the blame in the long run. With everything about this episode in mind, it truly is ironic that something completely normal that literally every person in this world does, just not into a microphone. I mean, unless you're into that sort of thing, I don't judge, man. But it literally is something that everyone on this planet does that ultimately shattered her perfect mask that she puts on every day. I'll recognize without a doubt that the embarrassment here absolutely goes deeper than just the fart itself, and it's more about the context of how it happened, but still, it's an interesting point to take in. Phoebe has all sorts of talents, achievements, and awards to back them up, which a lot of other people don't have. But in the long run, it would be something as simple and common as a fart that would completely derail her life and destroy her drive to show up and be the best version of herself. Plus, can you imagine being her parents in this scenario? Like, what do you do? I mean, obviously you go to the school and do something about it. However, can we just stop and think about how messed up that this is? You send your kid to school, they behave well, get along well with others, perform great in class, and have flawless attendance. Only for them to end up miserable, bullied, and becoming a laughingstock simply because they farted? Then, after nearly every last one of these kids have personally hurt your child's feelings, they all show up in your living room wanting to talk to her, along with the teacher, who, sure, albeit unintentionally, poured fuel on the raging fire, burning your child's self-esteem to a crisp. Again, what do you do? I feel like this is one of those moments where if I was Kyo Heyerdahl, I would stop dead in my tracks and just think, what even is my life? How did I get to this point where my daughter is in tears and my living room is full of kids I don't even know who are one by one going into my daughter's room and making her cry even more? On another note though, I do think that her parents absolutely deserve praise for leaving the option to choose her path of education up to Phoebe herself. She talked about leaving PS 118 and they were on board without a doubt. Of anything, just suggesting that she really contemplate the decision as much as she could. They saw the pain that their daughter was facing and they were willing to let her make the choice that she needed to make in order to pave her own path ahead. Back then, a lot of parents would have just told their kid to deal and that they're not changing schools. I mean, Arnold comes to his grandpa constantly with issues similar to this, and his grandpa pretty much laughs at him and tells him good luck. That's really symbolic of the typical experience for a lot of us in school back in the 90s and the early 2000s. In all reality, Phoebe's parents were extremely progressive in hindsight, especially when you compare them to a lot of other parents in this cartoon. In a way, she's really lucky to have the relationship that she does with them, even if there is a minor chance that they're the ones putting pressure on her in life. However, if there was one important relationship in Phoebe's life that I would probably question if I were her, that would be the friendship with Helga. I mean, is it not diabolically messed up that Helga wasn't there for Phoebe throughout any of this? Like, she even joined in on the dog pile and laughed at Phoebe's expense. And when it came time for her to provide a bit of comfort in a one-on-one setting, Helga was just a total jerk about it. It's pretty messed up when you consider that, like we saw in my Dark Side of Hey Arnold video about Helga, Phoebe is always there for her when the shoe is on the other foot. It's just kind of expected of her. And the one time that she wasn't, in the episode Helga Gets a Makeover, when Phoebe goes to Rhonda's slumber party, Helga ends up completely heartbroken. In that one, Helga was the target, and simply because Phoebe chuckled along, she was just devastated. Meanwhile, in this episode, it's like Helga just gets a free pass for joining in on the bullying. There's no accountability, there's no apology. It's just like everyone directs their mocking at someone else, and Phoebe is expected to move on. And sure, she does, having found value in how she views herself more than how others view her, but ultimately, that doesn't make it any less awful that literally nobody took any accountability here. Especially Helga. I mean, it was Arnold of all people who had to be there for Phoebe because straight up nobody else was. Not her best friend Helga, not even Gerald, the boy who has a crush on her. It was Arnold who was there from the start. It's crazy too, because still, this just scratches the surface of how awful of a friend that Helga can be. If she was even partially worth her weight as a friend, she would have reached out to make Phoebe feel better instead of laughing at her. But with that being said, Helga is a genuinely different kind of person. Her brain doesn't operate like others, and the fact that her and Phoebe are friends is a genuine mixture of 50% how does this work, these two are nothing like one another, and 50% of course Helga chooses this girl of all people to manipulate in a toxic, one-sided friendship. There's a ton of layers to their friendship and the effect that it's had on Phoebe. To even begin to peel back the first layer, we're going to dive into an episode that walks the line between showing Helga's true colors and highlighting even more about Phoebe's psyche and the way that she looks at life. Of course, that would be none other than the classic Season 3 episode, Pre-Teen Scream.
Man, there's nothing good on the radio today.
Oh, leave it there. I love this song. I saw.
The radio host announces a contest to win a chance to go backstage at a Ronnie Matthews concert and to have dinner with him after the show. All you have to do is write them a one-page letter explaining why you're the best person for the spot. Arnold and Gerald have no idea who Ronnie is, leaving Rhonda bewildered, saying that he's the greatest singing sensation in 50 years.
Get a grip on yourself, you bunch of wimps. Don't you have better things to do with your time? Come on, Phoebe, let's go spit in the river. Hey, Phoebe!
I'm afraid I can't join you at the river, Helga. I have things to do at home.
Back at her house, Phoebe hides in her room, throwing a Ronnie Matthews album into her CD player, flipping around some posters that she had hidden, and kicking back on her bed to write her contest entry. She finishes it up and goes out late into the night to drop it off at the mailbox, and the next day we see her peers and Principal Warts doing the same thing. As time passes, eventually we see the kids yet again gathered on Arnold's front steps, listening to the radio.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Drum roll, please. The winner of the Ronnie Matthews concert tickets and dinner is Phoebe Heyerdahl.
Phoebe?
Phoebe Heyerdahl is the winner.
I can't believe you of all people, won. I can't believe you even entered the contest, Phoebe.
You must be really excited, Phoebe.
I'm quite pleased. I get to meet Ronnie Matthews! I get to meet Ronnie Matthews!
Next thing you know, we see Phoebe at Helga's house begging her to join her for this concert. Helga, though, is absolutely uninterested, saying that she hates concerts and that he's just some idiot guitar player.
I hope you're not referring to Ronnie Matthews, who's not only an accomplished guitarist, but also writes uniquely intelligent lyrics. He's the voice of our generation.
Man, you've really snapped your cap over this guy, haven't you?
Yes. Oh, please, Helga, come to the concert with me. It'll only be a few hours, and there'll be lots and lots of free stuff, please!
It's okay.
Oh, thank you.
Phoebe heads home and throws on her best oversized red sweater, and after picking up Helga, the two head on over to the venue where Ronnie Matthews is performing. The two girls sit front and center stage as Phoebe completely loses her mind, straight up enthralled by Ronnie Matthews and his music.
This is it. Now we're backstage. Any minute, we're gonna meet Ronnie Matthews.
After just a brief moment, Ronnie's assistant comes out and lists all of these ridiculous rules for talking to Ronnie, like no hard questions and be sure to laugh at all his jokes, before she takes the girls back. They get to meet Ronnie's hairstylist, Ronnie's masseuse, Ronnie's tailor, Ronnie's psychic, Ronnie's video game consultant, Ronnie's personal one-on-one basketball opponent, Ronnie's makeup consultant, Ronnie's agent, Ronnie's trainer, Ronnie's idiot brother-in-law, and of course none other than the man himself, Ronnie.
Helga, and she's...
Phoebe?
Hello, Phoebe. Hello, Helga. Please sit down. So, did you enjoy my concert?
Oh, so much. It was so great. All your music is. It speaks to me. It's just wonderful and great. Right, Helga?
It's okay.
That is funny. That is so very, very funny.
At that, Ronnie gets hungry and they all head off in his limousine to this little hole-in-the-wall diner. He walks right in the door and everybody cheers, super excited to see him eating there. They all sit down as Ronnie just orders the most expensive thing on the menu, telling Helga and Phoebe to have at it and get whatever they'd like.
Really?
Okay, slap a bib on me and stand back.
The hours pass and Helga fills the table with plates as she just puts food down, talking with Ronnie the entire time. He goes on and on about how he can buy whatever he wants and how having endless amounts of money is the most satisfying thing in life. At that, feeling disappointed, Phoebe asks Ronnie about the joy he feels when he's writing a song and searching for that next note on his guitar or the perfect lyrics.
My dear Phoebe, you have to understand something. I don't write the words of this song. I don't write the music. I don't even know how to play the guitar. And keep this under your hat. That's not me singing all those songs. I just move these handsome lips, and out of the speakers comes a beautiful voice, but it's not mine.
Oh my, this is devastating.
As Helga takes in the fact that Ronnie is a total hack fake musician, yet he's still rolling in dough and a massive celebrity, she says that she's impressed with how far this con has gotten him. Meanwhile, Phoebe is heartbroken, saying that he's a sham. Of course, Ronnie even has the audacity to put a quarter into the table jukebox to play his own song that he can't even sing.
I saw your face and wow. Tell me, would either of you ladies like to have a short dance?
Let's kick it.
That we'd be together, girl, just you and me. That's the meaning of eternity.
Later on, we see the limo pull up outside of Phoebe's house as Ronnie drops off her and Helga. Of course, Helga is just fawning over this dude, thanking him for everything and saying how awesome that he is. Meanwhile, Phoebe blatantly says that she's really disappointed to learn that he's nothing more than a pretty face. Not surprising, Ronnie doesn't even understand what she's saying, simply just thanking her for the compliment on his face, and like that, he drives off into the night.
Vaya con Dios! Call me! Hey, Phoebes, come on, what's eating you?
What's eating me? You really want to know? All week you make fun of me for liking Ronnie Matthews and wanting to go to his concert, and then you meet him and suddenly he's the greatest thing in the world because he's rich and has like 1 million cars, and then you two are old pals, laughing and dancing. Hey!
Helga puts all this back on Phoebe, saying that she was the one who was worshipping this dude and that she was the one begging her to come with. And of course, when Phoebe points out that that was before she knew he was a massive fake, Helga reminds her that that isn't her fault.
No, it's not. It's just that music, those lyrics. They were so beautiful. How could I have been so stupid?
Oh, come on, Phoebe, you're not stupid. Anybody could be fooled by a handsome face. Even someone as smart as you.
You're right. I guess you should never meet your heroes.
At that, the two start talking about how dorky that Ronnie is and how he couldn't even get Phoebe's name right. They stand up, embracing each other like the friends that they are, and they walk inside as the episode comes to an end. So, first things first, I absolutely need to acknowledge something that sparks so much joy. Man, if I thought the essay not being able to be simply checked for plagiarism was a sign of the times, I see that and raise you, a bunch of kids chilling on the steps around a radio waiting for something good to come on. Now, that right there, that's a sign of the times. No playlists, no streaming, no nonstop music. Just whatever was on and some host talking between songs, endless commercials and all. That was just the peak of roughly pre-2006 childhood. Like, look at these kids. It's safe to say, without a shadow of a doubt, give it a handful of years and they'll be chilling on one of these bad boys. Yeah, how's that for a nostalgic walk down memory lane? Getting to the meat and potatoes of this episode, though, it's interesting to take in how much this one feels like an evolution of her holding back her big feelings and learning to let that go. In the start of this one, she's so contained with her true emotions and her feelings, but by the end of it, we saw her full-blown letting those emotions out, even directly on Ronnie Matthews himself. Sure, her feelings may have fallen on deaf ears, but that doesn't negate the bravery that it took for her to be able to verbalize those feelings to begin with. Phoebe is the type of person who typically, in a situation like this, I'd expect her to be nothing but cordial with Ronnie, leaving without saying much, and when she gets home, just quietly taking down her posters and getting rid of her CDs of his. That assumption mainly stems from her very conservative approach to sharing her emotions. However, seeing how this played out, it kind of makes the last episode really interesting in hindsight. Like we talked about before, in Phoebe's Little Problem, she didn't really hesitate to show her emotions and let people see how the embarrassing fart moment had an effect on her. At first, it seems as if she's letting all the emotions out because that's nothing in comparison to the embarrassment of letting a fart out in front of everybody. But what if instead, with that episode being all the way in season 5, it was meant to imply that at that point in the series, Phoebe had fully embraced openly showing her emotions more? I mean, when we keep that theory in mind, this episode could very well be the initial point where her emotional walls started breaking down. Sure, you could call it a stretch because this show didn't really deal in character development much, but look at the big picture here. This little girl met her hero. The guy that she's seen as a multi-talented artist and voice of a generation, practically worshipping the sound of his voice coming out of a speaker. Only to find out that he's a complete phony pretending to be someone to look up to. Of course, a moment like that can be character defining, even in real life. that can completely crack a child's fragile outlook on how life is supposed to be. I mean, look back at my Dark Side of Hey Arnold video about Eugene, for example. In that episode where he meets his favorite superhero, the Abdicator, only to find out that he's a complete fraud who just plays a role on TV. Of course, that is way different because this actor never really claimed to be a superhero in the way that Ronnie Matthews claims to be a musician. But the real point is in how that realization completely rocked Eugene's world. He turned straight up bad, going out of his way to disobey any and all rules in as extreme a way as possible. Now, consider this though. That was Eugene's reaction to finding out that everything he sees on TV isn't true. It's as simple as that. Phoebe, however, she literally just found out that she's been pretty much cheated and lied to. Her family has bought posters and CDs of this guy, contributing to him financially, under the impression that he is creating this art on his own. Phoebe poured her heart and soul into this contest entry. She's really invested a lot of her energy into this guy, only to be rocked in the end by the truth that he isn't an artist at all. He's just basically Helga, but a fully grown man. To be honest, that's way worse than what Eugene went through. However, Eugene had a full-blown meltdown and personality overhaul as a result of it. Meanwhile, Phoebe ended up using this experience to potentially better herself in the long run, seeing the value in sharing her feelings a little more openly. All in all, that really just highlights some key differences between Eugene and Phoebe as people, which I won't go too deep into because the point of this video is diving into Phoebe and not spending 3 hours comparing her to Eugene, who already had his time. The hiding of emotions in this episode, though, is extremely prevalent. However, it wasn't really shame or desperation to be the best that was being hidden. In this episode, it was simply her enjoyment of Ronnie Matthews that she was hiding. It was the fear of being judged for liking something that everybody assumes that you won't like. I mean, the shock on everybody's face when Phoebe was announced to be the winner said it all. It's almost like it's unheard of that Phoebe, the 9-year-old little girl, enjoys the latest breakout pop star. Either that, or they're shocked because all of them are so self-centered that they can't imagine the idea of anyone other than themselves winning, let alone a person like Phoebe, who a lot of them see as just kind of another face in the crowd, albeit a very intelligent one. In a way, it's not surprising that she would have the most tame and controlled response in front of her friends, only to go home and burst with excitement. It's a clear indicator of that fear she carries of her deep secrets being exposed. However, this one really makes us wonder about her self-consciousness and where it all started. Is it really as simple as being fearful over having your secrets exposed? Or is the root of it a fear of being the target of her peers, having seen just how vicious they can strike? One aspect that I truly find mind-boggling as well is the balance between the way that Phoebe can hide secrets like this from her best friend Helga, but at the same time, Helga can read Phoebe like a book. I mean, back in the episode Phoebe Cheats, we saw Helga in the beginning clearly knowing that Phoebe not being the best was something that was going to bother her. That's because she knows Phoebe at her core. She knows not only that truly would bother her, but also that Phoebe has a tendency to bury her big feelings until nobody is around. Even if it did bother Phoebe, she wouldn't show it. This episode, though, takes that idea and kind of flips it on its head. Like, how is it that Helga knows Phoebe so well that she can predict when something is going to bother her, and yet she has no idea that Phoebe is a secret Dr. Dre fan? I mean, Ronnie Matthews fan? However, Phoebe knows all of Helga's secrets, especially the secret, the one about Arnold. That aspect clearly underlines an uneven balance of trust between the two. Helga seems to trust Phoebe more than Phoebe trusts Helga, which, to be fair, isn't much of a surprise. Other than that one time when Phoebe laughed at a joke about Helga at a slumber party, Phoebe has never really done her wrong. Sure, you could point out the fact that Helga is the one that should have won the poetry trophy, but even then, the more we dive into their friendship, the more you realize that for every one time that Phoebe has done Helga even a little bit dirty, Helga has completely stabbed her in the back like 35 times over. I mean, do I even need to bring up the last episode and how Helga completely failed to be there for Phoebe when she never wanted to come back to PS 118? In all honesty, it comes down to the fact that Helga just doesn't care about Phoebe in the same way that Phoebe cares about her. She's not there for Phoebe in the way that Phoebe's there for her. Phoebe has saved Helga countless times, especially from telling Arnold her secret. Like when Helga was sleepwalking, or when she thought she was perishing from monkey nucleosis. Helga, on the other hand, just doesn't seem to have the patience for Phoebe whatsoever. On top of that, her ability to read Phoebe like an open book easily leads into how manipulative that she can be. Helga knows Phoebe really well, and when you combine that with the fact that Helga has established to Phoebe that she's seen as lesser in their friendship and Phoebe just kind of accepts it, it leads to a dangerous toxic dynamic full of double standard expectations. It's almost like the entire basis of their friendship is predatory. Like, I can picture Phoebe being in kindergarten and being alone, and Helga just kind of coming up to her one day and deciding to start bossing her around. And Phoebe just went with it, even though they aren't really compatible as friends, because she was just happy to finally have somewhere to feel like she belonged. Even if that place was underneath Helga's thumb. Before we move on and really dive into Helga and Phoebe's friendship, we need to cover a few more bases on this episode first. On top of this being a harsh lesson in not idolizing people because at the end of the day we are all human, it's also a general lesson in how sometimes in life certain things simply just aren't how they seem. On that note, I'm really wondering if Ronnie Matthews could be considered a con artist. Like, he prides himself on not singing, writing music, or playing instruments, yet still being famous. Just for his looks and pretending to do those other things. Is that inherently a con, though? Also, I can't help but wonder what gave Phoebe the impression that he writes all of his own music. Did she just assume that? Because if she did, that kind of makes this a Eugene-esque situation where this is just her learning the harsh reality that not all artists make their own quote-unquote art. However, if it says on the booklet of his CDs, guitar and lyrics written and performed by Ronnie Matthews, then yeah, that would definitely make him a total con man, as he would be claiming credit for the things that he didn't do, yet reaping the rewards of. But if proper credit is given, I mean, that just shows that millions of people either didn't read the liner notes on the album or they just don't care that they're buying music from somebody pretending to be someone else. Honestly, I'm kind of curious about your guys' opinion on that. Let me know down in the comments, is Ronnie Matthews a con artist in your opinion? If there were anything else to point out about this guy, it would be the fact that he's kind of a weirdo. Like, he's sitting at a booth with two 9-year-old little girls, which isn't inherently weird because they won the chance to have dinner with him, but putting on his own dumb song that he didn't write, while bragging about how famous and rich that he is for putting on this act, it's just corny and weird. Plus, him asking if one of them wanted to dance, grabbing Helga by the hand? Yeah, weird. I mean, if that's not weird to you, look at how Helga is dancing here. Like, what is that face? What's going on here? That's weird. It's just weird. To be fair, though, I guess whether he's a con artist by definition or not, he's an absolutely questionable person as far as ethics go. It's one thing to be in that place simply for your looks, but bragging about it the way that he does really is just super scummy. With that in mind, it really does make sense that he and Helga would be two peas in a pod. They're both people with rough morals, though one of them is much more rough than the other. Speaking of Helga, though, the dynamic between her and Phoebe is probably one of the most painful parts of this show to take in. I mean, this series really did go out of its way to showcase a lot of different friendships. Arnold and Gerald, Sid and Stinky, Rhonda and Nadine, even Wolfgang and Edmund. However, all of those friendships are almost a walk in the park when compared to Phoebe and Helga. Not only the basis of their friendship is messed up, but interestingly enough, Helga has a bit of a habit of rubbing off on Phoebe. And of course, it's never the other way around. Helga never really becomes a better, more respectful person or has any better tendencies as a result of being around Phoebe. For Phoebe, however, there have been times where we see her forego her morals in the name of getting ahead in life, in a way that definitely feels a little inspired by Helga. Kind of like we saw in Phoebe Cheats, but in a different way. The first episode that I think of when I consider this angle, without a doubt, has to be the Season 1 episode, Hall Monitor.
Well, here we go again. Another day with Helga the Horrible.
Cheer up, Arnold. It's Helga's last day as hall monitor. How bad could it be?
All right, people, step it up. Keep moving, that's right. No blocking the halls. That's enough, son. Save some for the fishes.
Helga reigns with an iron fist as Gerald and Arnold talk about how excited they are for a new hall monitor to take her place. Later that day, we see an assembly going on where Principal Windbag is thanking Helga for her service as hall monitor and for going above and beyond to even make sure nobody steps on the cracks in the tile on the floor. And at that, he announces that per tradition, Helga, the current hall monitor, gets to choose the next hall monitor.
I was thinking of volunteering for a second term.
Now, Helga, your dedication is to be commended, but there does come a time for every public servant to turn in the revered badge and move on.
Okay, fine. I pick... Phoebe. Phoebe? Me?
Phoebe makes her way to the stage, accepting her hat and outfit. However, she's clearly apprehensive. Just like that, we cut to the halls where she's confiding in Helga, saying that she doesn't think that she's gonna make a very good hall monitor. Helga simply brushes her off, however, saying that it's easy.
Just do like I do.
But that's just it. I'm not like you, Helga.
Look, Phoebe, hall monitor is the greatest job there is. I mean, the perks are incredible. Free hall passes, extra trips to the water fountain, and you get to boss other kids around. I couldn't let this job go to just anyone. I picked you because you're my best friend.
Really?
Phoebe tells Helga that she'll do her best, but when her time comes to shine, she gets trampled as she fails to keep any of the kids in line. Immediately, Phoebe says that she wants to quit and that it's useless. But nevertheless, Helga is confident that she can turn her into a great hall monitor yet. She gives Phoebe a bit of a pep talk, asking if she wants to be the kind of kid who gets walked all over and pushed around. All the while, Phoebe is literally being walked all over and trampled.
Sooner or later, you have to learn to stand up for yourself. Phoebe, are you listening to me?
Wow, a first grader stepped on my glasses, and I was still wearing them. You know something, Helga? You're absolutely right. All my life I've been a follower. I've let other people push me around, take cuts in line, borrow my pencils and never return them. Well, not anymore. This is it. Out with the old Phoebe, in with the new.
Helga pats Phoebe on the back, and just like that, we cut to later that night where we see the two in the halls at school. Helga showing Phoebe the ropes and what it means to be a strict hall monitor. She teaches her all about using her tools to her advantage, like her whistle, for example, which works perfectly to get people's attention, as opposed to Phoebe's soft-spoken voice. Surprisingly enough, that's about all the teaching that she seems to need, as somehow blowing into that whistle seemed to wake up Phoebe's inner authoritative voice.
Yo! Halt! You're gonna do just fine.
All right, everyone. Let's all walk nicely on our way to class.
Phoebe gets up and tries to talk to Sid using her normal, calm, gentle voice, but he challenges her authority, showing zero respect. That is, until he sees Helga in the background holding a clearly threatening demeanor, watching him like a hawk. Of course, fearing what she might do, he backs down, letting Phoebe think that she won with her calm demeanor, oblivious to Helga's help in the background. With her newfound confidence, Phoebe starts becoming more and more like Helga. However, it isn't all too long before she takes it too far. Eventually, as the days pass, we see the halls at school adorned with signs and full-blown lanes designated for direction of travel, with everybody slowly following them, all to the last detail.
I thought you said hall monitors couldn't get any worse than Helga.
That's what I thought before Field Marshal Phoebe.
Yo, halt! Do you have any idea how fast you were going there, son?
I'm terribly, terribly sorry. I have to get to a pre-algebra test.
As Sheriff Phoebe tears Peapod Kid apart, giving him detention, Helga laughs and pats her on the back, while Arnold and Gerald scoff at just how far that Phoebe has fallen from her true self. We see the day go on as the two go through the lunch line, talking about how many days of detention that they both have as a result of Phoebe going crazy, and how they're going to miss an upcoming monster truck show because they have detention.
Look at these. One for walking too fast, one for walking too slow, one for turning a corner too sharply, one for turning too wide, one for squeaky shoes, one for suspiciously quiet shoes, and these are just from this morning. What's this?
One for littering.
As Phoebe walks away, Helga cuts in the lunch line with her eyes set on the very last pudding. As all the other kids in line complain, she starts to flex her so-called executive privilege. But just then, Phoebe comes up from behind, putting her in her place and leaving Helga completely caught off guard. She writes Helga up for detention as her jaw nearly hits the floor, leaving all the kids in line entertained at Helga's misfortune.
Phoebe, get real! Helga Pataki doesn't do detention. Besides, I've got tickets to the monster truck show. I was gonna take you.
No, you get real, Pataki. You're the one who taught me not to let anyone push me around. Well, I'm not letting anyone push me around, and that includes you. And one more thing. I despise monster truck shows. See you in detention.
When I told you not to let anyone push you around, I didn't mean me.
Later on in detention, we see Phoebe sitting on the teacher's desk and watching over the class as Helga stands up front cleaning the chalkboard. After a few moments, though, Helga decides to let her have it, telling her that she's become a power-hungry bully. Of course, the entire class gasps, completely shocked that somebody finally stood up to Phoebe, the dictator of the halls. They stare in awe as Helga just rips her a new one.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Phoebe, in the last week, you've screamed at kids in the halls. You've rationed water at the drinking fountain. You've given out more tickets than a lottery. I mean, look around. Half of our class is sitting here in detention.
So what? I'm just acting like you. You're the one who taught me to be this way.
Yeah, well, you didn't have to be such a good student. What happened to the old Phoebe I used to know?
The whole class agrees with Helga as Phoebe denies her, saying that the old Phoebe was just a pushover who no one misses. Yet, she's shocked to hear Helga say that she misses the old Phoebe. The one that was her best friend, that helped everyone, and wasn't this big, angry ball of venom. As she ponders what everybody is saying, Helga asks her to come over to the window and look at her reflection.
What do you see? Hey, it's not that scary.
Yes, it is. I've lost the old Phoebe. Deep down, I don't really want to be this horrible, bossy, scary, selfish, emotionally challenged person who has to order people around just to get respect.
Who'd want to be like that?
Just like that, Phoebe announces that she's going back to her old self, giving up her badge and position of power. All the while, all of her classmates are sneaking out of detention behind her back. When she turns around to see that they all left in the middle of her speech, she's at least thankful to see that Helga had the wherewithal to stick around for her.
Right, Phoebe. I'm really proud of you for being strong enough to be yourself. Come on, let's go get a soda.
Great idea. I'll be right there. Yo, halt!
Phoebe?
Coming, Helga.
So, right off the heels of this one, it's really interesting to think back to episodes like Phoebe Cheats and a few other episodes that we're going to check out next because, yet again, here we are seeing her forego her morals in the name of getting ahead in a way that feels really Helga-inspired. It's like there are times when she faces situations where there's a potential to get ahead and claim some sort of victory or power, and oddly enough, sometimes it feels like she stops and asks, what would Helga do? Proceeding to weigh the morality of it all against the possible benefit to her if she does follow through in Helga-inspired footsteps. Interestingly enough, though, this episode being all the way back in season 1, it begs the question, how long has Phoebe been this way? The biggest thing that kind of brought that to mind is the moment where Helga tells Phoebe that it's easy and to just do like she does. To which Phoebe says that she's not like Helga. If we're being honest, that admission, as simple as it is, it feels good. It's like Phoebe is on the precipice of realizing that her and Helga's relationship makes little to no sense and that it's not very good for her. On the other hand, though, it also feels like this really could be the true tipping point of Helga rubbing off on Phoebe. Like, looking at the Phoebe from the start of this episode, it's hard to imagine her cheating and plagiarizing a poem to get ahead. By the high point of this episode, though, when Helga has fully rubbed off on her and she's embraced that extremist hall monitor persona, it's not hard to imagine in how many other ways that Helga could rub off on her as time goes on. That theme is one that's definitely recurring in this Helga and Phoebe friendship arc, and I can't help but find myself wondering if Phoebe has had bits of Helga rub off on her as far back as the beginning of their friendship goes. What's kind of crazy, though, is that on top of Helga rubbing off on Phoebe, she didn't even really give Phoebe a choice in embracing her inner Helga. She decided that Phoebe needed to basically be reprogrammed because she wanted to quit, feeling like she wasn't abrasive enough. There wasn't any asking Phoebe's permission or if she was up to it, or anything like that. Helga just kind of steamrolled her into submission yet again, which comes as practically zero surprise at all. It's sad to take in that Phoebe seems to get literally no respect from anyone at school. Not from Helga or nearly anyone else. Except for Arnold. And maybe Gerald as well. I mean, watching this poor girl just get shoved, trampled, and have her glasses broken was just so heartbreaking. Especially when you keep in mind that she was trying her best with her natural demeanor equipped. As far as that's concerned, however, it's kind of mind-blowing to take in just how empowering that specifically the whistle was for Phoebe. It was almost like blowing into that whistle for the first time was like a breath of fresh air being forced into her lungs. I mean, this gentle-mannered, soft-spoken kid is used to being so quiet at all times that hearing a noise that loud and abrasive coming from her was shocking to her. Almost as if she had a hard time believing that noise came from her. Yet, once she accepted it, she realized how powerful it made her feel. It made her feel like she finally had a chance to demand some respect and the ability to put anybody that she needed to in their place after they spent days trampling her. With that in mind, though, it really does emphasize the symbolism in the ending. The moment where we see Phoebe getting just one last taste of power. After giving this big speech about how she can get people's respect without having this massive power of authority. It's a moment that's just so telling of her self-awareness on a completely higher level than we've ever seen before. Specifically in the sense that she knows there's a low likelihood of anybody having the level of respect for her that they did when she was in power and using fear to strike that respect into them. So, for just a moment, she wanted to feel that sense of power and respect one final time. Because with how these kids walk all over her, odds are it'll be a long time before she feels that respected again, if ever. And that's sad. Her peers shouldn't treat her the way that they do. On a normal day, the real Phoebe is nothing but kind and mindful. Yet nobody cares for a moment, seeing her as the perfect doormat to wipe their shoes on and get a pencil from on the way into the classroom. Touching briefly on her power one last time though, this episode proves to generously show the social struggle that comes along with one person strong-arming the control of power. It was clear in the way that we saw Helga handing power to Phoebe, having no problem at all with her running an even tighter dictatorship as it wasn't affecting her directly. Simply because of who she is, she wasn't being targeted by Phoebe's draconian authoritarian rule. When the rule turned on Helga herself, though, that's when she decided it was time to stand up. Not when literally everyone around her was completely miserable and being punished for doing nothing. That courage to do something and stand up for others only came about when it was her personally who had to see some consequences. And if that wasn't a clear-cut representation of modern-day America, I don't know what is, and that's all I have to say about that. Going in a bit of a different direction, we definitely need to talk about Helga and her saying,
When I told you not to let anyone push you around, I didn't mean me.
Honestly, you guys, this is just beyond messed up on so many levels. This was a clear-cut example of how awful of a friend that Helga truly is to Phoebe. This is her not only admitting that she straight up pushes Phoebe around without care, but that she also thinks that she's entitled to do that. She thinks that she holds this special place that inherently gives her the right to rule over Phoebe. She sees it as if Phoebe's in charge, then Helga is in charge because she's the one pulling the strings. Which circles right back to Helga's manipulative role in their friendship. She's established Phoebe pretty much as her servant and practically expects her to fall into that role without any resistance. Even after Helga straight up trained her to be more vicious than she herself is. It's really just despicable, and to be completely honest, I'm 99.9% sure that Phoebe is well aware of it. I'm confident that Phoebe knows how awful that Helga is. This was evident in the moment that Phoebe looked into her reflection and ended up seeing Helga, only to be terrified and disgusted by what she saw. I mean, this right here just says volumes about how Phoebe views Helga. Like, despite still being her best friend and catering to her every whim, Phoebe clearly has a very negative view of Helga and doesn't want to be like her. She knows Helga way better than a lot of people do too. Definitely better than Helga's own parents or sister know her, that's for sure. But in a really subtle way, this just serves as a huge moment in this series. We all see Helga a certain way, and we see Phoebe a different way. Like, in general. And this moment confirmed two things in that. A, Phoebe absolutely sees Helga in the same way that a lot of us viewers do. And B, Helga might just be completely oblivious to how she's seen and how she portrays herself. We see that in the moment where Phoebe panics after seeing Helga in her reflection, and Helga even acknowledges it, saying it's not that bad. Like, she knows that Phoebe is talking about her when she says that she's lost the old Phoebe, and that she never wanted to be someone who's bossy and has to order people around to get respect. However, in response to that, Helga says, "Who would want to be like that?" Which is a loaded response. The fact that it's followed up with a comedic sound effect obviously paints this as a joke, but like, is Helga playing into a self-deprecating sense of humor? Or does she truly not realize that's how she actually acts? Either way, this moment was big in the sense that it truly showed us an early glimpse of how self-aware that Phoebe is, which would be a trait that would carry on through the rest of this series. She knows herself, is hyper-aware of how she comes across, and even said in the end that deep down, the entire time, she didn't want to be this. However, as far as Helga goes, this one would really just leave us questioning not only her self-awareness and her awareness of how she treats Phoebe, but also her ability to see an obvious outcome from a mile away as a result of her own actions. I mean, it wasn't hard to see that Phoebe turning on her because of her increasingly low tolerance for rule breaking would be an issue at some point, yet Helga couldn't connect those dots oddly enough. This episode, all things considered, is one that showed Phoebe in a very out-of-character light. She's not aggressive by nature in any way. However, it did show how easily molded that she is by Helga, which ties right into the manipulation. What's really interesting, though, is the duality between Phoebe's desire to get ahead and her tendency to think, what would Helga do, as it pertains to the time when it comes to her and Helga potentially getting ahead of one another. We saw a bit of this aspect in the first episode when Phoebe won the award that Helga was supposed to get. However, there's one other episode that really triples down on this aspect. That would be the Season 3 episode, Phoebe Takes the Fall. As this episode starts out, we see the academic bowl underway at PS 118 as Phoebe just wipes the floor with the competition, allowing her teammate Helga to sit back and relax. As her and Helga take the victory, Mr. Simmons announces that tomorrow will be the finals, where the kids will all face each other one-on-one instead of on teams to decide who will represent the school in the all-city tournament.
I guess we'll be competing against each other tomorrow.
I guess we will.
Well, may the best girl win.
Right. Well, I'll see you, Phoebe.
Just like that, we cut to Helga's house, where she's talking to her dad about the competition, as he explains that the academic bowl was the one competition that even Olga, their pride and joy, couldn't win. He even still has the empty shelf space on their self-proclaimed trophy kingdom, where he planned to put the award.
She just couldn't get that last question. What is the state bird of Maine? It didn't matter. Some pimple-faced little geek buzzed in with the right answer. The chickadee. Chick-a-bleepin'-dee. Oh well. Good luck tomorrow, Helga. Don't feel bad if you blow it. Sure would be nice to win that trophy, though.
Helga starts to pace the living room, wondering what she could possibly do to bring that trophy home and finally one-up Olga once and for all. Next thing you know, we cut to underneath an overpass, where Helga is telling Phoebe that she's going to take the fall at the competition tomorrow so that Helga can win and prove herself better than her sister once and for all.
I need that trophy, Phoebe. I need to win. As my best friend in the world, you have to understand that.
I guess so. I mean, if it means that much to you.
Look, there'll be a lot of competitions in your life, and you'll probably win most of them. Except this one. Just think of it this way. It's not your night.
Just like that, we cut to the next day where the finals of the PS 118 Academic Bowl are underway. Phoebe, Helga, Arnold, and Gerald duke it out until it comes down to Helga and Phoebe as the final two competitors. The two go head to head until it comes down to one final question that decides the winner and who will be representing PS 118 in the citywide competition.
What was the name of the privileged warrior class in ancient Japan? Phoebe?
The sumo wrestlers?
No, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. Helga, you have one chance. If you're correct, you win.
The samurai.
The samurai.
Correct! Helga Pataki, you are the winner!
Mr. Simmons tells Phoebe that she's going to be the alternate in case Helga is unable to compete, as he congratulates Helga on her win. As Phoebe sits with her head held in shame, we cut on over to Helga's house, where she's dropping a book on her desk, preparing to study. As soon as she opens it, though, she's completely shocked and terrified. Not having any other ideas, she ends up going right to Phoebe's house and saying that she's going to devote her life to making sure that Helga crams as much knowledge as possible for the competition.
And we have to start now!
Now? But Helga, I plan to meet my mother.
Oh, you can do that anytime. She'll understand. You're my best friend and I need you. Now come on, we're burning daylight.
As the hours pass, we see Helga and Phoebe spending the day together as Phoebe quizzes her and she fails every single question just horrifically. Before you know it, they've studied well into the night as Phoebe is giving up her sleep to teach Helga. The next day at school, Arnold walks up to Phoebe to find her sleeping face first in her lunch. He wakes her up, saying that she looks just completely exhausted, and Phoebe explains that she was up all night tutoring Helga for the academic bowl.
I was kind of surprised you didn't win the school competition. I thought you would have gotten that final answer.
Yeah, I guess it just slipped my mind.
Hey, Helga. I was just talking to Phoebe. She's practically falling asleep over her lunch.
So, it's a free country. She can sleep where she wants.
Don't you think you should give her a break?
She doesn't need a break. She's fine. Besides, I got more important things to worry about. I have a contest to win.
Arnold keeps trying to advocate for Phoebe, who is currently sleeping on the ice cream machine, as Helga completely dismisses his argument, basically telling him to buzz off. From there, again, we see Phoebe quizzing Helga into the night, and Helga finally is starting to get a grasp on this, getting at least some of the questions correct. Eventually, she tells Phoebe that she's gonna go to bed so that she can get enough rest for the competition.
Actually, Helga, I was thinking about the contest, and I was having some, second thoughts.
Second thoughts? Don't waste your time. See you bright and early, Phoebes.
Right. Bright and early.
Oh, boy, am I gonna sleep good tonight.
As you'd imagine, Helga most certainly does not sleep good tonight. She tosses and turns all night, having nightmares of being on stage at the academic bowl and being questioned by Arnold about how she took this from Phoebe in front of everyone. As Arnold says that Phoebe should be the one on that stage, Helga shoots awake, sweating buckets.
Man, what a crazy dream. It was like Arnold was trying to tell me something, or make me feel guilty, like I did something terribly wrong and I need to realize it and do the right thing. Well, good thing it was only a crazy dream. I gotta get some sleep. I got a contest to win.
That next day, Helga's family pulls up to Phoebe's house to pick her up and give her a ride to the academic bowl. As they head there, though, you can see Helga's guilt eating away at her as she hears Arnold's words echoing in her mind. All the while, Phoebe is in the background profusely apologizing to her for not preparing her enough for the competition.
Phoebe should be the finalist, shouldn't she, Helga?
It's my fault.
Oh, come off it, Phoebe! Stop it! Just stop it!
Stop what?
How could you let me do this to you? You should have been in the finals, not me, and you know it. I made you take a fall because I said it wasn't your night. Not your night. Phoebe, it was your night. You would have won that contest hands down.
Helga says that tonight, Phoebe will be the one competing, and nobody, especially not her best friend, is gonna stop her. As we cut on over to the massive auditorium, we hear Helga telling Mr. Simmons that she doesn't feel well and that she needs Phoebe to take her place. At that, we cut to the stage where Phoebe is going up against the smartest kids in the city, and in the long run, everyone ends up nearly neck and neck with one final question to decide everything.
What is the state bird of Maine?
The chickadee, Phoebe. The chickadee.
The chickadee!
Phoebe Heyerdahl, you are the all-city champion!
As Helga stands there cheering Phoebe on, Arnold comes up from behind, saying that he thinks he knows what she did, and that he's really proud of her. Of course, she brushes him off, saying that she has no idea what he's talking about, and as Arnold walks off with a smile, Helga continues to cheer for her best friend, who's finally having her night. And just like that, with Phoebe having earned her rightful spot on stage, the episode comes to an end. So this episode is a really hard one to take in on a lot of levels. Like, I really don't know what stings more. The fact that Helga had the audacity to treat Phoebe the way that she did through most of this episode, or the fact that Phoebe just lets Helga treat her like this for the most part. As far as Helga goes, the light that this episode cast on her character is one that isn't all too surprising. I mean, we already know how Helga is and the root of most of her issues. In her defense, her parents, especially her father, are just absolute garbage. Like, did anyone else notice how Bob had absolutely zero expectation for Helga and no faith in her to win? Of course, if this were Olga, we all know that he'd have her training nonstop because she was the golden child who was capable of anything in his eyes. Meanwhile, his other daughter, who is equally as capable, just not as recognized for it, just gets doubted because Bob always chooses to see her in Olga's shadow regardless of her achievements. And in Bob's narrow mind, if Olga couldn't win this competition, there isn't a snowball's chance that Helga could win. So it isn't worth his energy in his eyes. He doesn't take this seriously for even a second, and he just says that it'd be nice to win, but don't hold your breath, Helga. Honestly, it sucks to realize that the core of Helga manipulating Phoebe in this one isn't even rooted in Helga herself. It's her father. Phoebe is being dragged under because of how Helga's father treats her. With that in mind, this episode makes Helga's manipulation of Phoebe really just so disgusting because not only is she the kind of girl to steamroll Phoebe into losing on purpose, but even deeper than that, Phoebe is the kind of friend who is genuinely willing to throw away this massive achievement that she's rightfully earned because she knows what Helga's family life is like. She knows that Helga struggles with being compared to her sister by their father. Phoebe puts herself and her best interest aside because she just wants to help Helga with her struggles in life. So much so that she's willing to rob herself of a deserved win in the process. And that's just so defeating. It's defeating because Helga doesn't stop to think that Phoebe doesn't deserve to be torn down in all this just because Helga's parents are awful. Phoebe doesn't deserve to have to give up a huge win just so that Helga's dad can look at her a little differently. Because we all know that Helga winning this isn't going to magically make Big Bob Pataki a good father all of a sudden. With all that being said, this is yet another example of multiple adults failing Phoebe, albeit this time by proxy. Because Helga's father failed, it affects Helga, and Helga affects Phoebe. It's just such a letdown when we consider how many other adults have failed Phoebe as well along the way, both directly and indirectly. Especially Mr. Simmons. Like, we've seen this guy accidentally antagonize her, not being there for her when she was being bullied, and now, blatantly, we just saw Phoebe give Helga the answer and lose on purpose, and he couldn't even pay close enough attention to see what's happening right under his nose. When it got to the point where they were at the finals of the PS118 Academic Bowl, it came down to Helga and Phoebe. It was blatantly obvious that Helga literally didn't know the answer to the final question, and Phoebe fed it right to her directly in front of Mr. Simmons as he just stared at the both of them. It's almost like this guy's entire world is just sunshine and rainbows, and he doesn't even stop to suspect that anybody could be up to no good around him. He's just failed Phoebe so many times over and over again, and at this point, it's not even funny. On the note of the PS118 Academic Bowl, it drives me nuts how much Helga didn't even think her plan further than this point, not realizing that she won't be able to have Phoebe feed her answers at the citywide Knowledge Bowl after this. She's just so blindly selfish that she didn't even stop to think that she hasn't even prepared that much to go up against the smartest kids in the city. On top of that too, it really kills me how much that Helga tends to weaponize her friendship with Phoebe in so many different ways. Not only does she boss her around and constantly make demands of her, but the moment that Phoebe objects for even just a second, saying that she already has plans with her mom and can't help Helga cram for the contest that Phoebe should be in, Helga guilt trips her, saying that she's her best friend and that Helga needs her more than she needs to see her own mother. It's just so nasty how Helga straight up does whatever she wants and puts Phoebe second in every imaginable scenario. I mean, do we even need to talk about that moment where Helga straight up tells Phoebe,
Just think of it this way. It's not your night.
Is that not the most condescending, hypocritical, nonsensical word vomit that you've ever heard in your life? It just paints Helga in such an awful light, and now that I think back to my Dark Side of Hey Arnold video about Helga, I kind of feel like it deserves a part 2. One that dives into all the truly evil things that she's done or tried to do throughout the series. If we're really being honest with ourselves as viewers, we can't all see this and not feel bad for Phoebe. Like, even when Arnold tries to talk some sense into Helga, she full-blown says that her winning this contest is a lot more important than Phoebe getting enough sleep at night or even having a life outside of helping her at all hours. This one really just emphasizes how much of a terrible person and friend that Helga is, especially to Phoebe. The one person who genuinely has saved her from exposing her deep, dark secret and humiliating herself on so many occasions. In hindsight, it's really almost incredible how emotionally inept that Helga comes across throughout this entire series. Like, she's the girl who can bust out an entire poem from the heart about how much she has strong feelings for Arnold. However, she lacks any and all awareness when it comes to things like the nightmare that she had the day before the competition. I mean, she was clearly having nightmares about Arnold calling her out because her conscience was screaming at her that this was wrong to do to Phoebe. But she still shrugs it off, saying she's thankful that it was all just a dream. As if it's impossible for dreams to have any significance or any indication of anything every once in a while. With that being said, this does exist as proof for us that Helga does genuinely have a conscience in there somewhere. It's just heavily buried in her mind and constantly ignored and neglected. In all reality, it's pretty shocking to take in the fact that Helga got to the point where Phoebe allowing her to dominate her life so much went as far as not even Helga herself being able to handle her actions anymore. It really makes you question Helga's self-awareness even further. Does she understand that she's like this towards Phoebe literally all the time? Or is she only capable of recognizing it when things have gotten to a completely heinous level? Just when it's gotten to an obscene point like we saw here. If that were to be the case, then we'd be operating on the assumption that Helga kind of has this constant basis of measuring the weight on her conscience, versus the convenience of being able to boss Phoebe around. And the scales constantly weigh toward the favor of Helga, not really feeling too much guilt over bossing her best friend around and treating her like a servant who exists only at Helga's discretion. And to be completely frank, that absolutely could be the case. I mean, the fact that we could even consider that says a lot about Helga's warped morals. She constantly treats Phoebe like garbage, but really, it takes something this extreme for her to see just how far that she pushes the envelope? In all reality, it's hard to take all this in and be left to constantly wonder, why is it that Phoebe puts up with all of this hardship? Why does she put up with Helga being such a manipulative, toxic friend? Sure, it could be because very few people respect her and she can't find anybody who will give her the time of day like Helga does. But with that in mind, Arnold respects her. Arnold gives her the time of day. Sure, they might be kind of incompatible in a lot of ways, but so are Phoebe and Helga. Honestly, it's a little perplexing that Phoebe doesn't try to make friends with someone maybe a little more kind, such as Arnold. Sadly, the reasoning behind Phoebe sticking with Helga would never really be explained or further explored. However, there is one massive question that we would get the answer to. What happens when Phoebe gets fed up? What happens when she finally decides to stand up for herself, whether it be directly or behind Helga's back? The answer to that question is one that would come in the form of none other than the Season 5 episode, Phoebe Breaks a Leg.
Here you go, Helga.
I said sharp, Phoebe. These are duller than afternoon tea with my granny.
Redoing. Ouch!
Later on at lunch, Phoebe sits down to take a bite of her sandwich when Helga spouts off her order to her and tells her to get to it because she's starving. As Helga kicks back and helps herself to Phoebe's lunch. Then, later that day, Phoebe tells Helga that she's got to stop by the library to return a book, and at that, Helga gives her a stack of books to return, saying that they're only a few weeks overdue and it shouldn't cost her more than $20. Phoebe does it without question, asking for nothing more than Helga to hold the bus for her. But, of course, when Phoebe walks out of school, she sees Helga sitting on the back of the bus, smiling without a care.
She couldn't even do that one thing for me.
Phoebe tosses and turns in bed as she dreams of Helga being a queen on the throne, as she, the chained-up slave, is tasked with endless cleaning duties. As Queen Helga laughs at her slave, Phoebe suddenly snaps awake at the sound of her phone ringing. She answers it to find Helga on the line, asking her to pick up her dry cleaning and get her a dozen of donuts on her way to school, saying it's only a mere 12 blocks out of her way. Of course, Phoebe isn't given the option to say no, and just like that, we see her walking down the street, struggling to carry all this stuff while she ponders how unequal that their friendship is.
Phoebe, look out!
Huh?
Wonder what all the fuss is about. Bet Wart's pulled the old groin muscle again.
What the? Poor Phoebe.
Yeah, with all of Helga's worship obstructing her view, she never even saw that dang bus coming.
Getting mowed down by a bus doing errands for Helga Pataki? Now that is truly sad.
Helga takes cover behind a mailbox, feeling like absolute garbage because if Phoebe wasn't doing her all these favors, she'd be just fine right now. At that, Helga grabs a donut for herself and runs to the emergency room, pulling a Sid and running into the wrong room of a person covered in head-to-toe casts. While she talks to the wrong patient, though, Phoebe wheels in behind her, donning a cast over just her leg.
Phoebe, you're okay!
Of course I'm okay. I just have a minor stress fracture in my lower leg.
Minor stress fracture? Oh, that's wonderful!
is?
Of course it is, Phoebe. It's horrible because I did it to you. I mean, think about it. If I hadn't put you under so much stress this morning, if I didn't make you change your normal, safe schedule, you wouldn't have walked in front of that bus and this never would have happened.
Phoebe tries to say that this was all just an accident. However, Helga doesn't let her brush it off. She demands that until the cast is off, she stays by Phoebe's side and dedicates herself to making her comfortable. She vows to treat Phoebe like a queen, and just like that, we cut to school where Helga brings Phoebe her lunch, stocks her desk, and saves her the best seat on the bus. Before you know it, though, we see Phoebe at the hospital getting x-rays done and being told by the doctor that she's ready to get her cast off today, much to her dismay.
You mean I'm healed?
Yep, quite miraculous, actually. Anyway, I'm ready to return you to your normal life.
My normal life?
These are duller than afternoon tea with my granny. Up to it, Phoebes. I'm starving here. They're only a few weeks overdue. Shouldn't cost you more than 10 or 20 bucks.
Doctor, do you think I could keep my cast once it's removed? You know, as a souvenir?
Just like that, we cut to Phoebe's house, where we see her altering the cast to add hinges and to make it so she can take it on and off, officially turning the tables so she is the one who gets to boss around Helga until she decides that she's done. From there, Helga's servitude gets more and more intense, with Phoebe enjoying every last second of the special treatment.
Why don't you take the aisle today, Phoebe? That way you can have more room to stretch out your legs.
Actually, Helga, I'd probably be more comfortable if you sat over there.
Moving.
Helga? Taking orders from Phoebe? Now that's something you don't see every day.
Well, of course, you ain't kidding.
It is pretty weird, but once she gets her cast off, things will probably go back to the way they were.
We then cut to later on over at the library where we see Helga and Phoebe sitting at a table while Helga turns the pages of her book for her. All of a sudden though, Phoebe's leg gets really itchy and she rolls off in a panic, having to convince Helga not to follow her. When she finally finds a quiet corner, she opens up her cast and starts scratching her itchy leg. However, as she does, Arnold comes down that very aisle, catching sight of her exposed leg and fake cast.
Your cast, it isn't real.
Oh, what are you talking about, Arnold? Of course it's real.
Phoebe, I just saw you take it off and put it back on. Maybe it was real once, but now it has hinges.
Okay, so what if it is a fake? It's a free country. I can fake a broken leg if I want to.
I guess, but why would you want to?
No reason.
Phoebe, this doesn't by any chance have anything to do with Helga, does it?
Helga?
Yeah, you know, because of the way she treats you.
Phoebe completely denies it, saying that this has nothing to do with Helga waiting on her hand and foot, claiming that she wouldn't be passive-aggressive enough to do something like that underhandedly, clearly lying to Arnold, who believes her in good faith. As the hours pass and Arnold watches how Phoebe treats Helga, however, her guilt builds more and more, almost as if every time she enjoys Helga's treatment, she sees Arnold in the background and is reminded of her heinous lie. At that, we see Phoebe after school sitting outside and thinking about calling the whole thing off, knowing good and well that what she's doing is wrong.
I can't possibly fake my injury forever.
Here's your math book and your notebook and your calculator. Now wait here while I run across the street and call a cab to take you to your appointment.
My appointment?
Yeah, you know, today's your day with the Swedish massage therapist. Now, I'll only be a second.
No, Helga, wait! Oh. That's it. I can't do this anymore. Arnold was right. This has everything to do with Helga, and what I'm doing to her is no better than what she was doing to me.
All of a sudden, Phoebe sees a truck barreling toward Helga, and she takes off her cast, sprinting into the road to push her out of the way and save her life. Just like that, we cut to the emergency room yet again, where Phoebe is now telling the truth to Helga, coming clean about how much she was struggling with Helga treating her like a servant.
You mean you felt I was making you do too much stuff for me and I wasn't doing enough for you?
Precisely.
Oh, wow. But I always thought you liked doing things for me.
Well, I do, Helga, but sometimes I wish things were a little different. I guess I wish sometimes you do things just for me.
Well, okay, Phoebe, I could do that.
Really?
Oh, sure. From now on, it's not all going to be about me. Could you get the door?
Opening.
As Phoebe wheels Helga out of the hospital, we see her doing multiple favors for her, almost as if nothing has changed, and just like that, the episode comes to an end. This one is probably the pinnacle episode as far as analyzing Phoebe and Helga's friendship. I mean that specifically because it's kind of showcasing a point that's been worked up to over time. We've seen Helga and Phoebe's friendship go through the rounds so many times at this point. It's always the same story over and over, save for the one-off moments like Hall Monitor where Phoebe finally stands up to Helga, or this one where Phoebe slyly crafts a lie to get Helga right where she wants her. All in all, this one genuinely showed us how shamefully aware that Phoebe is of her dynamic with Helga. She knows that Helga takes advantage of her, but she doesn't really have a problem with it until it starts overtaking the portion of her plate that she's already reserved and dedicated to serving Helga. We saw her plain as day battling internally with how much she feels like Helga walks all over her right before the accident happened. On that note, it needs to be said that whether the bus accident happened or not, something would have happened with Phoebe. She was obviously reaching a breaking point over just how much Helga was overworking her, and on that note, this one serves as a testament to how much everybody does have their breaking point. Even somebody as shamefully aware that they're enabling a codependent relationship as Phoebe is. A person can only handle so much before they become genuinely overwhelmed and end up searching desperately for a way out. And for Phoebe, she got to the point where she felt as if the only way out was prolonging her injury as much as possible. She even said it herself.
I can't possibly fake my injury forever.
This statement, as clear as it is, comes with just a bit of hidden context. The way Phoebe uses the word forever here almost feels like she's looking for a way to stop Helga's mistreatment forever without fully ending their friendship. As much as she said this whole time it was only supposed to be a few more days, that final sentiment toward the end genuinely felt like she wished that she could do this forever. The thing is though, no matter how fed up that Phoebe is, she's never going to pull away from her friendship with Helga. At least, not as far forward as we would ever see in this show. At the end of the day, it's genuinely sad that Phoebe isn't willing to break off her friendship with Helga. Because the odds are, Helga is never going to change. She's never going to stop being this manipulative commander of Phoebe. Even at the end of this episode, we see her right back at square one, putting Phoebe down for not following her instructions down to the last detail as they get on the elevator. It's a tough one because, as much as I recognize Phoebe likely being a lot more lonely without Helga constantly looming over her like a big sad storm cloud, at the same time, that loneliness is likely a lot better for her than just being seen as someone's servant all the time. To the point where you're literally having nightmares that they're a queen and you're a servant in shackles. It's no secret that her life would be a lot better and easier without Helga around. She could focus on herself and do what's best for her for a change, instead of always acting with Helga's consideration first. On top of that though, the friendship with Helga is kind of bad for Phoebe in the sense that, again, sometimes Helga rubs off on her. It's similar to how we spoke about it early in the episode Hall Monitor. However, this time, instead of Helga teaching Phoebe to be like her, Phoebe practically used her own clever scheme to pull a page out of Helga's book and get her into a submissive servant position. Similar to the exact position that Helga has always had her in. The real truth is, though, this one really does feel kind of out of character for Phoebe. Especially if we keep in mind our look back at the episode Phoebe Cheats. In that one, Phoebe's guilt manifested mostly on its own. She knew that she cheated, and it led to her feeling guilty naturally because she knew she didn't earn the win. However, in this episode, when yet again doing something she knows is wrong, that guilt and apprehension to continue this lie wasn't something that naturally came about. This time, it takes Arnold pointing it out for her to feel any guilt. And even then, she argues with him about it, saying that it wasn't wrong and denying that it had anything to do with Helga at all. All the while, ironically, she full-blown took a play out of Helga's playbook, saying that it's a free country when questioned about why she was faking an injury. I feel like, in the long run, this point also serves as a true testament to not only why Helga is kind of a bad influence on Phoebe, but also again why Arnold would genuinely make a better best friend for her. I mean, her and Gerald got along famously as well, and don't worry, we'll touch more on that here soon, but seriously, maybe they aren't as incompatible as I thought. I mean, interest-wise, they're different, but then again, Helga likes monster trucks, wrestling, and playing football, just like Arnold does. And Phoebe still goes along with her to do those things, even though she openly admitted that she doesn't even like monster trucks. Meanwhile, interests aside, the compatibility of morals is more so one that would ring true to why Phoebe and Arnold would get along much better. They're more on the same wavelength as far as right versus wrong. Meanwhile, Helga is completely warped in that sense. Again, it just adds to the complexity of Phoebe's role and how unfortunate that her place in the social hierarchy is. Her and Helga as best friends just feels like such an odd pairing when put under a microscope. But with that being said, that's kind of the point of it. They're not supposed to be two peas in a pod. Phoebe is a character that was initially written to fill this sad role without complaint, leaving all of us viewers questioning why she doesn't do anything to step away from that friendship. The thing is, though, she goes so much deeper than that, and I think that's why the odd pairing of Helga and Phoebe starts to feel so frustrating. Early in the series, Phoebe didn't feel as defined as a character. If we look back to Hall Monitor, there's a very specific moment where Helga says,
I picked you because you're my best friend. Really? Really. Well, thanks, Helga.
Phoebe questioning that she's really Helga's best friend here is honestly very telling. This early on in the series, being in season 1, serves to establish to the audience that Phoebe is almost like a kid who's lost and doesn't have a best friend. She seemed honestly surprised that Helga saw her as a best friend. However, all these years later, it's been re-established that these two have actually been friends since kindergarten. On top of that, there's been a lot more lore about Phoebe's character established since that early season 1 episode. Hence, why that was the only episode that we covered from season 1. As time would go on, Helga and Phoebe's friendship would just feel more and more like it doesn't make much sense. It became clear that she was a character that was originally written to fill a role beside Helga. The fact that she was expanded upon so much over time would be a great thing, of course, but without a doubt, it came with the side helping of questioning what she's even doing here. Her parents are supportive of her pursuing alternate education. Nobody at school really respects her, especially not her best friend. And she's so smart that she could, without a doubt, finish school at a faster pace than expected. Again, that's another question to add to the pile of numerous unanswered questions, but there was an episode that kind of got close. An episode that saw Phoebe stepping away from not only Helga, but all of her peers. And it came along with a heavy glimpse at how she fares when practically thrown into a pool of sharks. We're talking about none other than the season 4 episode, Phoebe Skips.
Class, please join me in congratulating Phoebe for her outstanding commentary on genetic engineering entitled Cloning, Why Two Heads Are Better Than One. An A-plus thoroughly researched piece of work, Phoebe.
Thank you.
As all the kids run out of class, Mr. Simmons pulls Phoebe aside to talk to her one-on-one. He says that they reviewed her school records and learned that she's not being properly challenged by the 4th grade curriculum. As a matter of fact, the school has recommended that with her parents' permission, she be bumped ahead to the 6th grade. At that, she says she'll think about it. But at home later that night, we see her jumping on her bed and cheering about having the chance to be among what she calls the smartest minds at PS 118.
The 6th grade? You're leaving?
Not leaving, just moving on to a new classroom where I'll face fresh academic challenges.
Just think about it, Phoebe. You, in the 6th grade? Get real. You wouldn't last a day. You'd be eaten alive, chewed up and spit back out. Man, talk about a stupid idea. Now let's go. I need you to distract Rhonda while I cut the designer tags out of her new sweater.
I think that perhaps you're just jealous, Helga.
Helga insists that Phoebe has no idea what she's talking about, but Phoebe pushes back, saying that when she goes to 6th grade, she's gonna make a bunch of new friends, and Helga's just afraid that she's gonna be alone. Of course, Helga pushes right back at her, saying that the halls are just crawling with people who are desperate to be her new friend.
If I wanted to replace you, I could do it like that. And one more thing, Phoebe. As far as your new and exciting friends are concerned, I wouldn't hold my breath.
Okay then, fine.
Yeah, fine. Go then.
We see Helga in class the next day as she faces the first day without Phoebe, trying to decide who's gonna be her new bestie. Meanwhile, Phoebe stands outside of the 6th grade classroom, taking a nice deep breath before heading in. She walks up to the teacher, introducing herself and saying that she got promoted from the 4th grade.
Suppose you think that makes you special or something. Grab a seat.
Well, well, girls. Looks like we got ourselves a new fish.
Yeah, I heard about her. She's supposed to be some kind of genius or something.
Well, she better not be too smart. We won't be able to take advantage of her.
As Phoebe takes a seat, being quickly approached by Connie, Maria, and their friends, we cut to Helga, who's chosen Lila to be her new best friend. As you'd expect, though, Lila ends up being a little too hesitant to do what Helga tells her, instead asking Rhonda permission to pull the prank on her. Of course, getting a pretty good scolding from Helga in the process for messing things up.
It seems, well, ever so wrong. Yeah, well, guess what? You're ever so fired!
From there, Helga decides that Nadine is going to be her new best friend, but that lasts not only for a few moments before Rhonda catches wind of it and stands up to Helga, saying that Nadine is her sidekick. All the while, in Phoebe's world, she finds herself being convinced to forge Connie's mom's signature for her note to get out of PE, and getting conned into buying the girls lunch for them when they try to pretend that they forgot their lunch money.
Well, today's my day to buy lunch for the girls. Only I forgot my money at home. Now what are we gonna do?
Well, I guess I could pay today. I had more, but I already lent $5 to Cookie so she could pay her overdue library fine.
Thanks, Phoebe. You're a real lifesaver.
Yeah, we'll have to make it up to you. Hey, I know. How about you join us tonight for a study party, Phoebe?
Phoebe happily agrees as Connie slips a scrunchie on her wrist, setting their friendship in stone. Later that evening, we see Phoebe arriving for their study party as all the girls happily greet her. She asks if they're ready to hit the books, but they explain that they had a better idea. They tell her that it makes no sense for all 5 of them to work on individual projects when she's the smartest of them all and could just as easily do all of the homework for them.
We totally trust you.
Oh, you mean you want me to do your homework?
Come on, Phoebes, what's the problem?
You want to be one of us, don't you?
Sure, of course. All for one and one for all, right?
That's it, Bailey. I've had enough of this stuff. I don't want you to see Shannon no more.
As the hours pass, Phoebe sits there sadly doing all of the homework by herself as the girls enjoy their time, making her start entire assignments over just because she used the wrong color of ink. From there, of course, it just gets worse for Phoebe. She ends up in class the next day as the girls yet again try to rope her into another study party tonight.
Tonight might be difficult. I have a hair appointment. Sorry. Hi, I'm Shivani Andrews, and I've just been promoted from the 3rd grade.
New fish. 3rd grade, huh? She must be the smartest girl in the whole freaking school.
Later on at lunch, Phoebe goes to join her new friends. However, they tell her that she can't sit with them as they no longer need her services. Welcoming that 3rd grade girl to their table, telling her about their study party after school today. As Phoebe runs away crying, we see her go right past Helga, who has completely run out of people to attempt to turn into her sidekick. Feeling defeated, Helga walks right into the bathroom where it just so happens that Phoebe is hiding in a stall, crying her eyes out.
I'll never be able to replace her. If only I had regarded her more as an equal instead of treating her like some kind of pathetic subordinate. If only my humble repentance could somehow reach her tiny ears.
Helga!
Phoebe!
I couldn't help but overhear what you were saying.
Oh, that was just
I'm sorry too, Helga. I suppose I should have considered your feelings before abandoning you.
Phoebe cries to Helga, giving her a hug and telling her that she's never felt so used until she went to become one of the 6th graders. She tells Helga that she was right and that it was a stupid idea. However, surprisingly enough, Helga denies that, saying that it wasn't a stupid idea, and that she was the stupid one for thinking that she could ever replace a friend like Phoebe.
You mean it, Helga?
Of course, Phoebe. I mean, you're more than just my sidekick. You're my best friend.
You're my best friend, too. And so I gave them all my money. Then they coerced me into doing their homework for them.
Alrighty, Phoebes, looks like I'm gonna be needing a few things. A box of thumbtacks, a ball of string, and a watermelon.
How about a pack of trick gum?
Good idea, Phoebe. Write that one down.
Writing.
Man, I gotta be honest. I like this episode for the most part, but it really does drive me insane for quite a few reasons. I mean, right out the gate, how messed up is it that Helga, Phoebe's best friend, tells her that skipping grades ahead is a terrible idea without any thought to it at all? There was zero support on her part. There was no care at all. Like, the fact that she believes in Phoebe so little is just really heartbreaking. It's kind of similar to how Helga's father doesn't believe in her at all. Like, she projects that struggle onto Phoebe even though it has not a single thing to do with her. Phoebe, as an intellectual and scholar, is perfectly capable. Helga has absolutely no reason to doubt her at all. Just like how Helga is capable and Big Bob has no reason to doubt her. More than anything, it's upsetting that Helga can't see how she treats Phoebe the same way that her dad treats her in those moments. Furthermore, she thinks that she has so much control over Phoebe's life that she can pretty much make a decision like this for her. She pretty much immediately told Phoebe that it's an awful idea and that she should just forget it, directing her to get ready for her part in whatever prank she was so dead set on pulling on Rhonda. It's honestly just infuriating that Helga carries such a level of audacity in thinking that she has that kind of control over Phoebe's decision-making in life. On that note, is it not totally predictable that Helga immediately jumped to choose Lila of all people to be her new best friend? It really is just so unsurprising, and it paints a clear picture of Helga. Sure, Lila is one of the few kids who doesn't have an established best friend, but also she's yet another soft-spoken, gentle, kind person. Just like Phoebe. You could look at it as Helga trying to find somebody kind of vaguely similar to Phoebe in an effort to immediately replace her. But what it really comes down to is that odds are, Helga sees Lila as someone that she can just push around and corner into a role similar to the one that she had Phoebe in. In the midst of all of this, though, I think it needs to be said that it felt really good to see Phoebe just full-blown pretty much tell Helga to shove it and decide that it was time for her to take her choices into her own hands. She got to the point where she felt like Helga was challenging her right to take her education into her own hands, and the fact that she would draw the line there really makes Phoebe feel like a stand-up character in a way. Just like how Helga tends to realize how she is and come through at only the most truly crucial moment, Phoebe decides to stand up for herself in similarly crucial moments. With that being said though, this one really did feel like a good, solid bookend for the arc of Helga and Phoebe as far as their friendship goes. It feels like one that almost resolves things, considering in the end they realized that they are good for each other in a few key ways that are just enough to pull their friendship through the mud. Not in every way, however, just enough to make their friendship one that is mostly worthwhile. It shows that in the end, Helga is there for Phoebe when it counts, and at minimum, she deserves credit for that much. I mean, she was there to accept Phoebe back as her best friend and welcome her back to 4th grade. She even talked about helping Phoebe get some revenge in the end, and Phoebe even played back into it. Which feels like it brings things to a full circle ending in a kind of reciprocal way. Outside of Helga and Phoebe though, this episode really did show us such a gruesome side of Connie, Maria, and their friends. They're absolute piece of garbage mean girls. They straight up exist to literally search out for intelligent but naive people to groom into this position of being complicit in doing all of their homework for them in the name of fitting in. On that note, the rest of the 6th grade class is never really portrayed in any better of a light if we're being honest. I mean, even the teacher was a straight up jerk, specifically when Phoebe came up and introduced herself, explaining her transfer from 4th grade. Like, this guy is just so incredibly burnt out, and looking at his class and how they're often portrayed in this show, I can't really blame him. But I mean, come on, dude. If you've lost that spark, just quit your job and move on to a new career already. You shouldn't be a teacher if you can't even find a small piece of you that cares about these kids. On the note of the class, though, I do find it interesting that the 6th graders are portrayed as so wild. They always seem like selfish jerks and like they hate everything. What needs to be noted, though, is that it's not necessarily a reflection of 6th graders directly. However, what they're trying to capture is that feeling of seeing slightly older kids when you're a young elementary schooler. I mean, when you're a kindergartner, most high schoolers are cool and kind towards you. There's just something about that massive age gap that makes most high schoolers rather softer toward them. They remember being that little and what it felt like. However, when you're like a 4th grader among 6th graders, something about that small 2-year age gap just somehow seems to bring out the worst in some, and that's exactly what Hey Arnold was trying to capture here. I mean, in a way, Wolfgang and the rest of the 5th graders are kind of the same thing. They come across rather menacing to the 4th graders. It's an interesting social standard among elementary and middle school kids, and in my opinion, Hey Arnold did an excellent job of capturing it. Above all, though, there's one really deep aspect that was completely neglected in this episode, and that would be Phoebe's relationship with Gerald. If I recall correctly, she didn't have a single interaction with him in this episode at all. You'd think that if she was leaving class for good and going to see him a lot less often, that she'd at least say something to him. However, it was like Gerald was non-existent in this episode. It feels really weird, but on that same note, it plays right into just how subtly that this show portrayed their relationship. It's the kind of thing that a lot of times was hinted at or implied through context. However, there were moments that clear as day implied them having a romantic involvement with one another. Sadly though, it just seems like Hey Arnold never took the time to truly follow through with that romantic connection between them in the long term. In all reality, it kind of feels like a missed opportunity, especially in the context of Helga and Phoebe's dynamic. I mean, Helga prioritizes herself, not caring about Phoebe or what she has to say really ever. With that being said, it could have made for an interesting dynamic for Helga to constantly hyperfixate on her love for Arnold and how she admires him from afar and feels like she can never be with him. All the while, Phoebe and Gerald have a positive, successful romance that is only shown in the background because Phoebe is always second fiddle to Helga. Unfortunately though, instead of focusing on Gerald and Phoebe, this show would give us episodes like the one with the scandalous neighbor girl Chloe zooming in on Gerald's crush on her instead. The sad truth is that Phoebe and Gerald's relationship has never been one that ever really got its own episode. The closest that we ever came was the episode Operation Ruthless, that was actually about Helga trying to sabotage Arnold in his pursuit of Ruth at the Cheese Festival. In that one, we see Gerald and Phoebe exchanging flirty looks, riding the tunnel of love together, and even holding hands. However, those were all small scenes sprinkled throughout the episode to the tune of like 45 seconds total. From there, we would only ever really see Gerald and Phoebe's relationship hinted at in very subtle ways, sprinkled in random episodes for the most part. Like in the episode Wheeze and Ed, when they get paired up by Helga to go explore the cave tunnels, or in that same episode when Phoebe ends up jumping down a hole in an effort to save Gerald. There was even a moment in one of the episodes that we checked out in this video as well. Specifically in Hall Monitor. There's a part where Gerald starts talking about how much he misses the old Phoebe, and he talks about how she used to eat all the crusts off of his sandwich for him. Or also that moment in Phoebe Breaks a Leg when she opens up her locker and we see a picture of Gerald inside. Outside of this video though, there were so many numerous occasions that would indicate there being a massive spark between these two. I mean, in the episode where they all go camping, Phoebe ends up full-blown having a secret side conversation with Helga about how much she admires Gerald's survival skills. All the while, she's looking at him all flirty. Not to mention also, in the episodes Hey Harold and School Dance, we see them dancing together multiple times and spending time with one another. Like, she even full-blown goes on a dinner date with Gerald in one episode, being joined by Arnold and Helga. Despite all of that, and even more instances of their possible relationship, however, it just never really stuck, which feels ironic, considering that there were so many instances among so many episodes where they were hinted at to be a couple. By the end of the series, not counting the movies, it honestly felt like they dropped the ball as far as Gerald and Phoebe's relationship goes. This entire time, they felt like a perfect pairing. However, in the series itself, they never really got that happy ending that it felt like they always deserved. With all that being said though, that's the tough part about Phoebe. As positive, kind, smart, and considerate as she is, she's sadly always going to live in the shadow of Helga. Not because Helga's better than her or anything like that, but simply because Helga forces her there. She makes Phoebe put her entire life on the back burner, and at the core of it all, The fact that Phoebe just sits by and accepts this as her life is genuinely a sad reality. Sure, maybe 2% of the time her and Helga work perfectly as friends, but at the end of the day, being disrespected by somebody 98% of the time does not equate to a proper and fair friendship. And when that character's entire basis is rooted in being somebody's friend / sidekick, that makes the disrespect feel like salt even deeper in the already painful proverbial wound. It makes the core of Phoebe's character feel like it's purely made to endure a painful existence despite being one of the smartest and most capable people in town. And I guess when it really comes down to it, that truly is the darkest aspect of her character. But what do you guys think? Did this episode change the way that you guys think about Phoebe Heyerdahl? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. Of course, massive shout out and love to my friends in the true 90s kids tier who make all of this possible. I couldn't do any of this without you, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Also, a very special shout out to the one lone member of the Sean's Best Friend tier, FF. Your unending support to my channel is just mind-blowing, and I cannot thank you personally enough, my friend. You're the greatest. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and give a little praise to the algorithm by sticking around for another one. Might I recommend my Dark Side of Hey Arnold video about Sid and Stinky? It's on screen right now, and it's perfect to get you through the rest of that work shift, or whatever else you might have going on. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Peace.
This song sounds familiar. I saw your face and